everybody. Welcome to the 419th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big, awesome supporter. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. The last couple weeks, I've done some off-of-mind topics, just random things that talk about Wolverine being a jerk. Last week was like a last-minute change of plans off my mind about comic book characters basically fighting copies, like versions of themselves, like evil versions of themselves to level the playing field, I guess. I don't know. And we're probably going to go back to do some Hobgoblin. We're getting close to wrapping up the whole history of who the heck the Hobgoblin is. And I know you probably know, but the journey is just so much fun. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or three. And that is ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. What is going on this week? Oh man, too much is going on this week for me. There's a lot of stuff. A little tiny bad news, I think. Movie feature is The Conjuring Last Rites. So it's a little surprising, but maybe not. This is the final The Conjuring movie. And I guess, if we're focusing on Ed and Lorraine Warren, then yeah, they probably told, all the stories that they can tell. Our actors are probably, maybe they're done, and all that details stuff. I don't think it necessarily means it's the end of the entire franchise, because we still have all the spin-offs that that we could see. So we'll see. We'll talk about how this movie was and what does it mean for being like the last one. We'll have another episode of Peacemaker, second episode. So I'm a week behind. It appears like a week and a half or something like that. We got Alien Earth. I'm definitely behind on that. I think only maybe a week. Is it 2 weeks? I don't know. I can't tell. Every once in a while they sneak out extra episodes, it seems. I don't know what's going on. Twisted Metal, I'm definitely behind. I'm behind on everything. Twisted Metal, because they're dropping 2 episodes a week or something like that. I don't have time to watch more than 1 episode a week. We got Dexter Resurrection, which I'm digging that show. Oh my gosh, the latest episode, what the heck is going on? And this, again, I will say it. I'm going to say it all the time, I guess. This is why I love the week by week, because it's just big not really a big cliffhanger, but big shocking, holy crap. And then you're left in suspense for a week. And I know some people really don't like that. I think it's fun because it makes you think about it versus 10 seconds later, everything's resolved. So we have that. Now you may have noticed, what did I miss? Wednesday, I've been covering Wednesday every week, even though they all dropped a month ago. And it worked out nicely, because this past week, the season 2 part 2 came out. So that means episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 are out. The rest of season 2. The original plan was to cover episode 5 this week. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I watched maybe 5 minutes, which I know that sounds crazy. How do you only watch 5 minutes? That's how much how crazy my time is. So as you know, with the day job, I'm not going to go too in depth with it, because this isn't the educational podcast from Heck. But I had back to school night this week, so it's beginning of the school year. We're at week 3? It feels like more. I think it's week 3. So I had back to school night. So that means basically parents come, they can hear from hear from the principal, all the teachers, and just what are our programs, what are our expectations, what's going on this year. And it's great to see the parents come, and especially since I teach middle school, so I got all 3 years and everything like that. But just to let them know, this is important. I am teaching your children. I'm spending an hour with at least an hour with them each day. It's sometimes 2 hours a day if I'm doing math and Spanish. And 5 days a week, everything like that. It's so who are we entrusting our children to? It's important to know who your teachers are. And it is great to see that there's that support there, that that they are able and willing to be there and be part of their children's upbringing. Yeah. So I won't delve into that issue and everything, but because doing that, that kind of threw me off a little bit, because that was extra time. Basically, I was in school till like just after 8 o'clock, and then getting home and then making dinner, and so my Wednesday plans, with no pun intended, my Wednesday plans kind of were messed up and everything. So I think, and I still don't know. Do you want to hear about Wednesday? I mean, or are you like what's the time code? Skip, fast forward. I mean, I still want to watch the rest. I'm curious, because we did have a nice cliffhanger at the end of episode 4, so I do want to continue watching it myself. I just don't know if people want to hear me discuss it. That's the big question. But let's get into the news. There's some. I missed when this happened, and I don't know if there's like an actual big announcement, but I just saw it kind of like people talking about it. But we got like Superman 2 news, sort of, but not really, kind of. There's going to be a Man of Tomorrow movie coming in. And get this, July 9th, 2027. So that's less than 2 years from now, we're getting a sequel. And someone, I forget if it was like on Twitter or Threads or something like that. It might have been on Twitter. Someone commented like this is like the fastest that a character is getting a sequel. And then Simu Liu, Shang-Chi, I think I forget how you say his name. He just commented like the emoji with like the face. I don't know, what you'd call it, because he's ready for a sequel. I mean, I would obviously, yes, 100%. I would watch a Shang-Chi 2 movie. I would watch pretty much any Marvel. I would watch Eternals 2 if they made one. I love the Marvel. I want to see the Marvel Universe. I want to see everything like that. But with Shang-Chi, we saw him. We had like a bit of a cliffhanger. There's more. The thing with that movie is, I didn't love the movie for little tiny reasons. Going off in the other, like, I don't even remember, like other dimensions and all the dragon stuff. And there was just like way too much like humor. Awkwafina is just, she's a funny person. I just think, I don't know. I mean, maybe I've never really known someone who, I've never been friends with like a stand-up comic where like every single thing they say is a joke. And that is a problem I have with like a lot of like even Friends. I love Friends. I've watched Friends so many times. But you if you ever just think about what like is going on, every single line a character says is like a joke, and it's supposed to be. It's a comedy. It's a sitcom. People, you want to get people to laugh, but it's like every single thing is a joke. And with Shang-Chi, it was like that, but more intent. I don't know. I would watch it. So what am I getting? So Man of Tomorrow. What the heck does this mean? Because James Gunn had mentioned that he's working on another movie. It's not a sequel to Superman, but Superman is going to play a significant role in there. And then now all of a sudden we're getting this Man of Tomorrow. It's like, wait, you said you weren't going to do Superman 2? Now we got Superman 2? No. Apparently, this is not Superman 2. This is the movie that he was talking about where Superman is going to play a major role, but it's not exactly a sequel, I guess. And it's not really clear like what other characters are going to appear. Like, will Lois be in there? Will Jimmy? Probably, maybe. But we're not really sure who else in there. Everyone. I don't know. It's like I said, I missed like the actual, if there was an official announcement, or I don't know if it's just James Gunn talking on Threads, which he does a lot. But everyone's like, I don't know if it's just speculation that it's going to be like a Superman and Lex team up movie for some reason. And so that's why it's not just a Superman movie. It's a Superman and Lex and something. I don't know. So that's what it sounds like. Maybe. I don't know. And I guess he said like Peacemaker Season 2 is more of a direct sequel to Superman. And maybe it just means, or he means like in the timeline. Because, if you've been watching, if you've been listening, we see the Justice Gang in the first episode. And, I don't know who else is going to pop up. since I guess I'm a week behind now. So yeah, we have all that. But that's interesting that we're going to see Man of Tomorrow. And some people are like, oh, Jason Momoa is going to be in there. And again, people are just like speculating because I don't know like what's officially been said and so forth. Same with like Spider-Man 4. You know, there's so many like reports on this and that and comments. And what I think a lot of outlets do is it seems like some outlets they'll like especially if an actor's on a podcast or something like that, or they do an interview where they'll, and I guess that makes sense. You know, I hate it, but I 100% understand why people would do this. So it's like you take this one piece of content and then you isolate all the different things. Like if they talk about this character, they talk about filming over here, they talk about what's in the future, and you know, so like every little sort of topic is like a separate article, rather than to do one like recaps. Like, so here, you know, this person talked to this, they said this, they said this, they said this. So it's a little more focused, but it's almost like content overload, because then, you know, if we're talking Spider-Man, you'll get like 5 or 6 different Spider-Man articles instead of one that just talks about everything. Like I said, it makes sense because if you just have one big article, you might lose something. Like you know, you're not going to read every single thing because there's so much to read. So I don't know, but like with all this like Punisher stuff and Spider-Man, you know, apparently he's going to have like this female sidekick, the Punisher is, and she's going to help like track down and kill villains. It's like by killing villains in Spider-Man. That's I don't know about that. There's also like some stuff about Mark Ruffalo. So, you know, they've been saying Mark Ruffalo is going to be in Spider-Man 4. So it's like, awesome, cool. You know, does that mean we're going to see the Hulk in there? And I guess someone asked him. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. I don't remember who asked him. But I guess someone asked about that, if like the Hulk's going to be in the movie or whatever. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I haven't read the script yet. So that kind of makes sense. They're probably like, hey, Mark Ruffalo, you know, do you want to do another Marvel movie or Marvel/Sony movie, or another MCU, whatever you want? And he's like, sure, you know. And they're like, here's your paycheck. So now him doing a movie, what does that mean? You know, is it just going to be him playing Banner, you know, in this movie, or is there going to have to be some motion cap stuff and, you know, to do Banner and Hulk? And either way, he's probably like, okay, whatever, you know, you pay me, yeah, I'm there. But we don't know what's going to happen. The thing is, what I'm assuming, I mean, I'm no expert or whatever, but I would think, one, is there room for the Hulk in the movie? You know, if you got that much power, would that make sense? Or what are you going to do with that? And you know, because that takes away, you know, it's a lot of limitation. If they're going up, if it's going to be like a buddy team up, and you're fighting someone, all of a sudden you got the power of the Hulk at your side. Not saying that Spider-Man's a slouch or anything. So you have all that. But I think the other main factor is, apparently, you know, it's very expensive to do this CG. To, you know, whatever, however, I don't know, understand what computer power, processing power, code writing power, I don't know. So apparently that's why, like in She-Hulk, a lot of times the transformations were done off camera, because it's a TV show and it's expensive. You don't have like a, you know, movie millions and millions, you know, dollar budget movies or whatever. So we'll see. I mean, I just think it's cool, you know, because we got this big shared universe, so let's have these little, even if it's like a cameo, you know, let's have all that, because that'll be cool. Tron Ares is coming up. I really don't know what to expect about this, because, you know, we got Jared Leto, and, you know, there's controversy around the guy. You know, there's just his practices, the way his method acting or whatever. I'll watch it. I am very fascinated with the world of Tron. You know, the first movie, I remember when I saw the first movie as a kid. And when you go back, you know, the graphics aren't great. It's not a great movie, but the idea, the concept is pretty cool. And then you look at Tron Legacy, the same thing. I saw Tron Legacy like late after, like I didn't see it when it first came out. And I remember even like when the characters came out for Disney Infinity, the little figures, if you remember, I love that game. I got the figures and I was playing it. I was like, oh, these characters cool, but I never saw the movie. I didn't know anything about it. Who are these characters? Who's Quora or whatever her name is? Honestly, not even sure if that's her name. Then I finally saw the movie and the graphics were, and I was like, man, I do really like the concept of this movie, but yeah, I don't know, hadn't seen it before, so we got another one coming, and I'm not even sure how this story fits in with the other, like what exactly it means or everything. I just really like Tron, even though it may not be the best thing. So here's the other crazy thing. As much as I like the idea of Tron, the movies are coming out, or I don't know if they've already been released in 4K. They're coming out in 4K. Physical media, I will preach about this any chance I get. Physical media is essential because there's so many times you want to watch a movie, it is not streaming anywhere. Or maybe it's streaming, but then when you want to watch it, it's gone. Or if you're streaming it, then your internet gets wonky and it starts like buffering and stuff like that. You don't want to deal with that. So owning the movie, that way you don't have to worry. And a lot of times also streaming the movies are compressed more, so they don't look as good. Even if it's supposed to be streaming in 4K or HD, whatever, and you have a 4K TV, it is not going to be as good as the actual 4K disc. And again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, so I'm not going to claim to be, but I know a lot. So movies are being released in 4K steelbooks. And if I've ever talked about it before, if you know, I'm a sucker for the steelbooks. I love the steelbooks. So Tron and Tron Legacy are being released on steelbooks, and they went up. I saw the announcement. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having them. They went on sale, and then they're sold out like right away. Because there's different places like Walmart is kind of like the go-to steelbook place because Best Buy used to do it. They don't do it anymore. Sometimes like Amazon has exclusives. So it's like Walmart and Amazon, they're the main ones. Then there's grub.com, which is I think they're a subsidiary of Warner. I forget who owns them. They're like but they don't just do like one studio movies. They do a lot, and they're a good source to buy physical media. And a lot of times they have a really good price, or it might be a little lower than other ones and so forth. So, I've been checking. I was like, Tron 4K, search for Tron 4K. It's like nothing coming. And then I would look at Walmart. They're like sold out. Because so many of these movies now, they go on, pre-orders go up and then they sell out. Like a lot of times, they're not even on sale and they're sold out already. Like if you wanted to get Superman 4K, there's not even a release date for that. I don't think you're going to be able to get. I mean, a lot of times they make more stock or whatever, because that happened with Sinners. Sinners sold out. It was impossible to get, or they would restock it and then sold out right away because I think people were buying. So I'm rambling way too much. I pre-ordered Tron and Tron Legacy is what I'm saying. But the real thing, what am I talking about? All that, they're available, that is kind of news. But the other news thing is there is going to be a Tron Ares popcorn bucket, obviously. I think there's actually two of them. One is like a light cycle. And I saw an image on Twitter, and I couldn't really see. It's like, wait, where exactly is the popcorn going? How does this work? You got the light cycle, and is it? Do you have to tilt it? Is it go into where? I don't know. And then there's another one. It looks like it's like an arcade cabinet. Okay, I don't think they're lighting up like the Galactus one. And I resisted getting. I still haven't bought a Galactus one. Probably couldn't at this point, but it was $80. I was like, no, I can't do that. Did you know there's a live-action Tomb Raider? I don't know. I'm trying to remember if there was rumors about this. So apparently, the live-action Tomb Raider, the actress has been announced. Because Variety talked about this. The production is going to start January 19th, 2026. So that's when they'll start working on it. And who is Lara Croft? Sophie Turner. And I'm not sure how you feel about that. Because obviously, with Game of Thrones, I can't even really speak on that because I haven't seen all of the Game of Thrones, the first original series, whatever. So I don't know how much action she may have done, and of course, she was younger and all that. And by that, I just means, maybe she hasn't, hadn't done a lot of action or so whatever, and maybe now she's trained more or who knows what. So I'm basing it more on, what was the movie called? The X-Men movie? X-Men, I can't even think of Days. Not, it wasn't Days of Future Past. It was man. I'm totally drawing a blank. I'm like in denial over this movie. It was a fine movie, but it just wasn't what we all wanted, I think. And she played Jean Grey, and it was okay. I don't know, and I just say, I think with the Fox X-Men movies, there's like something kind of missing. So maybe it's not fair for my slight disdain over her or the characters, not necessarily her performance even. I would say the character's portrayal. Let's put that, because with the character portrayal, it's heavily, yes, the actor is a huge part of it, but you have the writing and you have the direction. It doesn't matter how great of an actor. If you're signed up for this movie and a director's like, yeah, I want you to do it more like this. If you don't have that freedom to interpret the character how you see fit, you have to do what the director tells you. You have to do what the script tells you. The script says like, oh, the character is shy and bashful and kicking the dirt. What I'm talking about. Maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. When you see like shy bashful characters kind of kicking their feet or whatever. But maybe you're like, no, the character wouldn't do that. But it's like the script says that, and then the scene comes out. The director's like, yo, dude, kick your feet or kick the dirt or whatever. That's what I want. Moi, I don't know. So we'll see. And I think it's a TV show. I don't even know who's doing it. Is it Netflix? Netflix had the animated. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, of course, I'll probably watch it, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I hope I'm totally wrong, and I hope I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. Sophie Turner is Lara Croft. We'll see. Apparently, there's some Clayface set photos, which I have not seen. I saw a couple like posts about it, and I was like, because I don't know if I'm assuming they're not like legit photos. I don't know if they're official released ones or if it's a stupid paparazzi, the spy photos, and which usually end up looking like maybe they're official. I don't know, but they're out there somewhere. There was a trailer for 28 Years Later, Bone Temple, and it's definitely different from the 28 Years Later. And Ralph Fiennes, his character is returning, as we know, but you got those other people. Hopefully, you saw 28 Years Later. I don't want to give anything away, but there's a lot more characters, and it seems like in this trailer, and like a different society than what we see. Because in 28 Years Later, you're really focusing on this island. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm excited that it's coming out. It's weird that we got these movies like kind of like back to back. So, okay, that's fine. There was I don't remember now if I watched this. There's a trailer for Marvel Zombies. And I thought I had watched it, but maybe I didn't. Maybe because I'm thinking about a comic book that came out this week that had them. So I don't remember now. Ewan McGregor, he was at... When was Fan Expo Canada? Was that fairly recent? I don't even know these days. But he said that he's going to watch like all of Clone Wars. He's like, that's my homework. So like, what does that mean? There's speculation. Is he going to have something to do with Ahsoka season 2? Rebels? No, there's no Rebels. It's Ahsoka. He also said about Obi-Wan season 2. He's like, it's pretty inevitable. Someday, at some point, we'll have it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he has scripts in hand. That he's probably like, yeah, it's pretty likely they're going to do it. He's willing to do it. So hopefully they'll get on their butts and start making it happen. I don't know. What about Terrifier? Have you seen the Terrifier movies yet? I really like those. I mean, they're just interesting, and I find it really interesting how. So we've had 3 of them, and it's almost like 2 and 3 are more tied together because you got like the same character, and the first one is a little more like shock violence. I was like, holy crap! Like, what are you doing here? But I find them interesting. I don't own them. Speaking of physical media, and I've been tempted. But part of it is because it's a smaller production, and if I get them, I want Steelbook because buying regular movies. I'm so weird where it's like I don't want a regular version. I want the Steelbook version, which is stupid. But yeah, maybe I should buy them at some point. But with Terrifier, so Damien Leon, the creator, he said Terrifier 4 is going to reveal the secret origin of Art the Clown. Because that's the thing. What the heck is up with this dude? He's not just a regular clown. There's something. What is this story? And we're seeing bits of it in the movies. So if you're a horror fan and you're okay with violence and everything, I would say definitely watch these movies because they kind of have a I don't know what I'm trying to say, but they're inspiring, but they have like this new energy, and I think that's great that they're just this is what we've been missing, because we don't really have. I feel like horror movies kind of slightly gone in a little different direction, and every once in a while you see people try to like tap into that old feeling. So I don't know. There's something kind of retro but modern at the same time. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling now, but I enjoy those movies. The last bit of news is James Bond stuff. I mean, nothing official, but they're talking about. And is it 26? I have 26 in my head. Is this a 26 movie? Is this Bond 26? We don't have a name for it, but they're talking about who's going to be the Bond girl, and it seems like that's such an insulting way to refer to him. That like oh, you're an actress going to be in this movie. They're going to call you a Bond girl, even though there should be more respect for that. But apparently there's and I don't even know if this is just pure rumors, pure speculation. But one is Ariana Grande. People would see that. And I'm sure when you first hear that, there's going to be some people like, no way, man, that would be ridiculous. I mean, say what you will, she's got talent. And, you look at Wicked. I was not, like, at all interested in seeing Wicked. Because, I had heard the soundtrack several times, driving my daughter around when she was little, and listening to that. And, catchy songs and all that. But it's a Broadway show. I listened. I'm not like the biggest. I don't like eat and whatever consume all this music stuff. But I'm okay with it. I can respect it. But I watched the movie. I was like, wow. I was like, they did a really good job with that. And everyone, all the performances were really good. And I'm looking forward to the sequel. So Ariana Grande in the James Bond movie. I don't know. There's also and this is why I feel like this is someone just sitting back making this up. Like this is not that it's an absurd thing, but it's a not expected thing. So by throwing out a name like Ariana Grande, that's going to get people talking because you're going to be like, wait, what? There's also Emma Watson, which is like, what's the last thing Emma Watson's done? I mean, she was in that movie The Circle, right? That was like a while ago. I'm sure she's done other stuff. Maybe I just haven't seen it. And they're also saying Florence Pugh, which Florence Pugh, obviously, we've seen her do action stuff in the Marvel movies, and all of them are good. I don't know, but what I do know, there's a lot more podcasts coming after this. But that is the news for the week. With comic books. At Dynamite, there's some stuff I did not read, but actually, one thing I was not aware of. There is currently a Thundercats Powerpuff Girls comic. The third issue came out. I don't know how I missed the first two. I don't know if I would have read them, but I'm like, what? That's just very interesting. Silverhawks came out. Thundercats Lost, number 6 came out. Captain Planet, number 4 came out. I don't know. I read the first Captain Planet. I think I talked about it, but I was never a big Captain Planet fan, so I didn't really. Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it because it doesn't mean I don't have that nostalgia thing. So I don't know. At Image, there was G.I. Joe Real American Hero, number 320. What I really enjoy about this, I find that the cover, all the orange in the background, the explosions, stuff like that, it just seems so like kind of G.I. Joe classic. That it's like, the first issue is more reddish than orange, but it just really, this kind of reminds me of that. This is issue. There's just like so much craziness happening here. We have some of the Joes that are trying to escape Springfield because their covers, they went in undercover, which is a whole crazy idea. I feel like that was rushed. I would have liked to have seen more. I don't know really what they could have done with it, but I feel like they barely had a chance to crack the surface, something of like Springfield, because they're finally there. And they don't really get to explore a whole lot. I feel like it was just way too fast. And then we got the Joes on Cobra Island trying to escape from there, and it's just a lot of craziness. And then I will say that some Joes, when they make it back to the pit, then all of a sudden Stryker's like, "Yo, we need you to do this up," like it was just like a weird transition, like, and then a weird ending. It just like, I wasn't really sure what was going on there. Let's see what else. Rockefellers number 8 came out. So this is Peter Tomasi and Francis Manapul. Number 8. I don't know if I said that. And I'm just really digging this series. I mean, it's you got this family from the future. They're in the present. They're on the run. There's like all this stuff going on, and we're starting to see more and more like what happened. I was gonna say what happened in the character's past, which is really the future. Like before, like why are they on a run, and who's after them, and like what are they doing? And so it's just really, amazing art. The story's really cool. So I definitely, I recommend that. That is all I think I've read at Image. At Marvel, let's see, did I read everything? I feel like I forgot to read something. There's All New Venom, number 10. I'm digging this. I will say Dylan Brock is so immensely annoying. His feelings are hurt and everything, but it's just, and I guess my other confusion is like, how old is he? Because if he's really young, then his reaction kind of makes sense. But either way, he's going to be hurt by a lot of stuff. But it's just the fact that he doesn't understand that he's, and the fact that so many facts I'm throwing out, right? But he's living or was living with Mary Jane and Paul. They kind of took him in, and so he wouldn't have to go into the system and all this stuff like that. And he's such a jerk to them. And I can understand Paul, because Paul just sucks, but man, he's just so rude and everything like that. And it's like, okay, you have no appreciation what they're trying to do. And sure, if they tried putting him somewhere, what's he gonna do? Run away, go on the streets? You don't have a symbiote suit to protect you. And I don't think he really realizes what the real world is. I'm just gonna sneak out of my room and go into this warehouse where there's like all this like explosions and mercenaries and stuff happening. It's like, dude, you can't do anything to protect yourself, and you're putting yourself out there and the hopes that there will be someone to protect you. He's so annoying. But yeah, we had the nice developments between Mary Jane and Paul recently, and just everything that she's dealing with. It's interesting. I'm enjoying it. Then there's Amazing Spider-Man 975 or 11, depending on what you're calling it. Legacy 975. And so I was like, I don't want to spoil things, but on the covers, who are the two Spider-Men? So it's like, wait, what? And even that is a little different than not really what you expected. Last week, was it? Oh, it felt like it was last week. Last issue, whenever that was, it wasn't a month ago, but we see some weird things going on. Like Spider-Man has kind of been inactive. He's just like, after fighting that I forgot that guy's name, because not Gauntlet, but the one dude, he kind of like takes a break. Gets injured. Then we see Peter Parker just like, he's like, nope, I'm not dealing with that. Like Shockers, amped up Shockers, working for Tombstone, doing some stuff, and Peter's just like, nope, I'm not going to get it mixed up in this. And he's spending a lot of time at work doing stuff like that. But then once we finally see Spider-Man, he's a lot more violent. And maybe he's just like, okay, I've had it, and I'm just going to cut loose. So it's like, wait, what's going on? But then the end of the issue was like, what is happening? I mean, it's just crazy. So we get we get answers here. I guess you could say we get all the answers that you would want, and which is nice. They could easily have dragged this out longer, which it would have been an interesting story. But they're like, no, we'll just tell you. Like, here's the reason, or here's what is going on. Now, what's going to happen after this? So I kind of, I can appreciate that. The mystery, I love a good mystery, but yeah, we're going with that. And this is a 975th issue, so it is longer, and we do see more. It gets crazy. Say like the second half of this, like what is going on and what that means is like, we have Avengers number 30. This is what I was talking about with the Marvel Zombies. You see it around the cover. And it's funny because Avengers, they're like, wait, why do they dress like that? They don't know what the Marvel Zombies are, but there's like some multiverse stuff happening, and they're trying to figure out what's going. I mean, it's not really multiverse. I mean, sort of, but it's Battle World stuff. I don't know. I don't think that's a spoiler, but they end up going, or yeah, maybe that was kind of not really, but maybe. There's like the remnants of Battle World from the last Secret Wars, not the original Secret Wars, and because they're trying to find this. I almost spoiled something. This Grail, this thing, and then like something happens at the end. It's like, wait, what? There's a bit of a revelation, and I'm just like, what? All this. I feel like, okay, we're at 30 issues. Like 30 issues just to get to this point and it's just like, yeah. So we definitely have more to say. I'll talk more about it when it's, after. I don't want to spoil too much. Doctor Strange 450. I was looking at this. Is like, I think this is like a 30-page comic, and I say, let me look at this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like 5 different stories. I was like, how's that possible if it's just like 30 pages? So it's like each story is like about 6 pages. So I was like, that's not even a full story. And the only thing I couldn't read it. I don't care, because a lot of it is like kind of like, it's celebrating Doctor Strange. So we get these old stories, and I'm sure they're probably good and cool or whatever, but it's like there's nothing really current. I'm like a picky Doctor Strange fan, depending on like the story and the creative team and that. So some of the adventures I probably am not super interested in. And so I was like, I don't know about this. And I was just kind of skimming through. I was like, if this is 450th issue, there's got to be something. There's got to be teasing something. And the last story is continued in whatever. Let's see, I got it continued in, I guess it's just called Doctor Strange number 1. I thought it had a different name, but it looks like there's still going to be some maybe Asgard stuff, which, yeah, I don't know about that. There was Gwenpool, Everything's Fine, It's Gwenpool number 5. So this is like the last issue, and I'm not, I love Gwenpool. I think that the original series, the Guri Hero art, it's amazing. I love it. I bought the omnibus, and it's just so much fun. I hate how underutilized Gwenpool is here. And here, because then we had like the Gwen Stacy stuff and the Gwenpool, and it's just, I was interested in a while, but it didn't quite land too well for me. So we'll see. And now I'm just afraid it's like, how long is it going to be until we see her again? And yeah, so a little disappointed. I had very high expectations. So some fun stuff, but yeah. There's an Imperial War, Exiles. You see Xavier and Lilandra on the cover. I started reading this, And I'm not a super Shi'ar fan. There's a lot of stuff. I do have to say, like, with their kid, I forget her name, and with Deathbird, I'm kind of having, like, new, I don't know if it's necessarily respect for her, new fondness for her. I really, because I never cared for Deathbird. That's her name, right? The Lilandra's sister? That doesn't sound right now. But I never really cared for her before because she was just so evil and manipulative or whatever. But I feel like her character has evolved and has grown. And so, yeah, I really, I like her a lot more. But, yeah, I don't know about this. We'll see where it's going to go. Now it's getting to the point where all this Empire stuff, I just feel like it's just dragging on. So I don't know. There was another Jeff. It's Jeff and Other Marvel Tales. I did not read this. There's a story, I think, there's a Jeff story by Kelly Thompson, Guri Hero. So I'm looking at the table of contents. Like, there's Alligator Loki, which I don't need an Alligator Loki story, by Alyssa Wong, Bob Quinn, and Pete Pantasis. And then there's a Marvel Meow by Nayo Fuji. So is it Marvel Cats? I don't know. I didn't read that. Laura Kinney Wolverine, number 10. So Laura and Gabby. Gabby's not in great shape, which is concerning. But this was good. I obviously it's wrapping things up. Where is it going to go after this? I don't know. But yeah, R.I.P. Gabby. No. Kidding, maybe. But yeah, it was fun. The only thing I wasn't super crazy about is sometimes Laura's costume was a little too stylized. Like her mask was it was a little distracting. But other than that, I mean, it's still good art. There was Magic number 9. I didn't read this. I don't know if it's still the same story arc. Probably, maybe. Moon Knight number 12. Moon Knight Visakanchu. And this is interesting because, Moon Knight, he's talking to the psychiatrist lady, and he's telling the story because someone came to him, the Midnight Mission. Someone comes to him for help. It's what is his name now? The Wrecking dude, Wrecker. Yes, I think it's the Wrecker, because Wrecker helped the Moon Knight when they had to break Khonshu out of the Asgardian prison. So he's like, "You owe me," and Mark's like, "No, I don't." It's like, you were paid, and you did it to get back at Thor. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Someone else pops up in here, which I think people will like, and it's an interesting ending. It's like, I mean, this is part 1, so it's like, what are you doing, Moon Knight? Spider-Man 94, number 1. I'm trying to remember. I vaguely remember the final episode of the animated show. I feel like, wasn't it something like Mary Jane disappeared or something? Or did she come back? Did Spider-Man find her? I feel like it was left where he didn't know where she was. Something happened. I don't know if she went through some multiverse thing. I just don't remember. Now here, I don't think this picks up right away. And I think at one point it's like the story will be told at later time. So maybe how she comes back will be explained. Like I said, I don't remember. And I totally don't remember. But man, Anna Watson, she sucks. She is so annoying. She hates Peter Parker. She is so immensely rude. And it's just like, holy cow. The other thing about this, obviously we have this nostalgia thing. It's like, this is so cool. This is such a fun show. So many opportunities. I'm a little put off because the writer, I forgot his name now. I interviewed him for the Green Lantern animated movie, I think. John Semper? Don't quote me on that, although you could. But he was like, it's like, yeah, they're doing this comics, and no one asked me anything about it. Like if I had any thoughts, which is unfortunate. If he was a writer, I don't know how long. I could be wrong, but it's too bad. We do have J.M. DeMatteis writing this, so he's, knows what he's doing and everything. But yeah, so that's a little off-putting. It's unfortunate. I don't know what the logistics or what contract stuff probably I don't know. The other thing that's unfortunate about this is there are moments when the art is just distracting. It feels like it's not overly consistent, and I mean, there's like sometimes like Peter Parker. It's like, who is that? Yeah, it's like I'm not sure what's going on. So that was a little distracting, and that right there, it's like I don't know if I can keep reading this because it's just I don't know. There was Han Solo: Hunt for the Falcon. I do want to read this. I started reading, or actually, it was more like flipping through, and then I was like, wait, Hunt for the Falcon, does he lose the Falcon? And because I think you see it at the beginning, and then I was like, how did he lose it? And I was like, so then I got to the end. I was like, that's okay. And I didn't see it. And I started flipping back. I was like, wait, yeah. So I have no idea what's going on here because I haven't read a synopsis or anything. But yeah, so maybe you should check it out. There's Legacy of Vader, issue 8. I have no idea what's this about. There's Ultimate X-Men. What number are we on of that? Issue 19. Uncanny X-Men number 20. I didn't read this. This is focusing. I don't even remember this kid's name. One of the young mutants or whatever. There's like some family stuff. Wolverine's like teaming up with him or going with him, and I do not care about these other characters. I'm not sold. I mean, we're 20 issues in. I don't. It's not that I despise them or anything. I'm just not interested. I'm not invested in them. So like they could all be like, all right, we're gonna take a bus and we're gonna go live at Disneyland. I'll be like, all right, see ya. Nice knowing you for a while. Yeah, so I have no idea what's going on, and I kind of don't care, which is unfortunate. And then there's Wolverine 13, The Claw Father. I'm like, I don't know. After what happened in the last arc, I don't know if I can bring myself to reading more Wolverine. Yeah, so I don't know. At DC, so I'm a little confused. There's a couple books that I'm trying to figure out where I can get my list of comics, like what because I'm looking on now, and I pick up some books from here, the Amazon, the Comixology. I wish we had original Comixology. It would make life so much easier. It's just I get so confused, but because like last week they had a couple books that I didn't even get to them, which is weird because then I saw like online some people were saying that they came out this week. I'm like, wait, what? When did they come out? But there is a Absolute Wonder Woman issue. I forgot what it was. I don't have the list that list to me. Maybe issue 11 are we? No, we're not that high. And I mean that is the best Absolute DC book, I would say. I know, it's no surprise, it's Kelly Thompson. I just love what she's doing with Wonder Woman. It's so interesting, intriguing, just like the background and like the elements of like her story and everything. So I'm just like so invested in that and wanting to see more. And sometimes it gets a little not really technical, but a little out there. But yeah, there's just something. I'm just like so curious or fascinated with it. So I'm enjoying that. There was also, what was it? Robin and Batman. I forget what issue it was. So Jason Todd one. And I'm friends with Dustin. I love his stuff. And it's not a bias thing. There's a lot of artists that, I've come to be chatty with. And it turns out they have great art as well. But it's nice when you respect someone or you like someone's work, and it turns out that they're really cool as well. And so with Dustin, with this issue, I'm always blown away with his watercolors, which are just like watching him draw. it's so fascinating. And as I was reading this issue, I was actually like pausing just to look at the designs and just the background and just the colors, and it's amazing stuff. And the fact that the whole book is like watercolors, and it's just it blows me away, and that makes me like happy that there are still books that can kind of like knock me off my feet every once in a while. I just really can appreciate what's going on. I'm so used to, especially, doing a podcast, it's just like read. It's like a machine. I'm just like trying to get through everything and and that takes away some of the enjoyment for me. So it was just a nice moment when I was reading this issue that I just like really took the time to just appreciate what's going on. So it's a great story too. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. So, and Jeff Lemire writing. So of course, Jeff Lemire and Dustin, they are a great team. Speaking of Batman, we have a new Batman #1. I don't know what this means about Hush 2. Is this just another? Because this is Batman #1, but wasn't Hush in the Batman series? I don't even know now. I thought it was in like the regular Batman comic, but I don't think that was finished. Okay, so we got Batman #1. This is by Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. I am a huge Matt Fraction fan. I think he's an amazing person. He's an amazing writer. I have so much respect for him. I think he is friggin' hilarious. I think he's so clever. Just the stuff that I have so much respect for him as just a creator. I mean, he blows me away, and he has this knack just finding the slightest, funniest thing. The Jimmy Olsen comic that he did, that was great. Or when he started with the Future Foundation stuff, and so now we got Matt Fraction doing Batman, and it's a cool. It's kind of like a reset, sort of. I mean, not like rebooting everything, but he's got new costume, new car, and there's the costume is almost kind of classic but new. There's a lot of the blue, which is the I don't even know what kind of blue you would call it. So it's a lot of fun. And what's nice about this is, you kind of get everyone wants to see like scary Batman, but we also have like a compassionate Batman here. And I feel like you need that. There is some compassion in like the Robin and Batman comic. So I think it's essential that you have that, because, you look at where Batman came from, just like the trauma that he experienced, having his parents shot and killed, murdered in front of him. And, he just cares, he cares so much. He's dedicated his life to fighting crime, because he doesn't want other people to experience what he did. So that's like rooted in him. But at the same time, he's so cold and just calculating. And so, it was just, I love this book. Absolute Superman, I didn't read that. I've checked out with that. Absolute Green Lantern #6. I did read a little bit of the flip through some of this, and we have Cameron Chase pops up in here. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but Simon Baz is here. So I'm like, wow, they're really taking a different approach to everything, and that's what you should be doing. This isn't just retelling Green Lantern. It's like, mixing things up. But the whole thing with like Hal Jordan and then you got the Black Hand stuff, and so it's just really weird, and I don't know where it's going. And the unfortunate thing for me is because I'm not like reading, like pure reading everything. There's been like a lot of issues or pages that I've skimmed, like the past issues. So I know I'm missing out on a lot of stuff, but part of it is because the time, and I can't read everything. I feel like I'm missing out on some really cool stuff, and I'm really intrigued with this book as well, as because there's just a lot of like what's happening here. JSA number 11. This was fine. We're kind of we're kind of getting some characters back together, some reunions, and it feels like it's about time because there's been they've been kind of scattered. The team's been like kind of all over the place in different parts. So it's nice to finally get them all together as they prepare. They're still dealing with the same threat. I think we're 11 issues in, so yeah, we'll see where that's going to go. Adventures of Superman, book of Kal-El, I think it was. I started reading this, and I was like, oh, now we got another Superman. But why do we have so many Superman books? And it's because the movie came out, so it's like Superman. And at first I was like, is this just another? Because we had that Superman Kryptonite book, which was kind of interesting, but I never finished it because it was a book. It was long, and I didn't have time. But this one, I was like, is there something else? But no, I think it's in current continuity. Because we got like those two kids from Warworld, and but yeah, I don't know. I started losing interest, which is crazy. How Batgirl, I did not get to this one, and I'm assuming it's more fighting the people that are looking for Lady Shiva and stuff. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much more. There was a Cheetah and Cheshire. Is this issue 2? I thought it was like a one-shot. I didn't read that. Birds of Prey, 25. There's a lot of stuff with ink in here, and I feel like I should be like more like, oh, this is cool. What's happening with her and everything. But a lot of it, I was just like, eh. And yeah, it was a little lighter in the action, just to kind of explain things, which is important, So yeah. There was Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2. I forget what issue this is. Man, there's so much happening, and it's crazy, but like in a good way. So I love what Brian Buccellato is doing, and then there's one thing, because like Superman and Supergirl, they're not as powerful on this other Earth because the sunlight's different. But then the Justice League members, whoever they're Mr. Terrific or someone, they kind of have an idea, like a temporary solution, and it's pretty crazy. So I applaud Brian, like the stuff that he's coming up with. It's like I love the fact that DC is letting him do all of this, DC and Legendary, that they're letting him do all this stuff, because it's pretty crazy, and it's a lot of fun. And that's it. That's all I read, because there's Poison Ivy, 36. There's a Resurrection Man. There's Teen Titans Go. I think that's it. That is comic books for the week.
All right, Dexter, Season 1, Episode 8, The Kill Room, Where It Happens. And, so one thing I was thinking about with Batista's AirPods, how he put them in Dexter's car. But I think you can only track them while the battery's still charged, right? So if the charge dies, then I don't think you can track them anymore. Is that how it works? I think I've never tracked like in one of my devices or anything like that. So I don't know. But Batista's sitting in his hotel room looking at articles and crap that he has taped to the wall. I always wonder, like, what is like housekeeping think? Are they okay with it? Because is he taping them to the wall? Is he pinning them to the wall? I don't think the hotel would want that. So he starts recording a voice memo on his phone. He's like, for the official record, this is Captain Angel Batista. I'm currently in New York collecting evidence to prove that my former colleague, Dexter Morgan, is in fact the Bay Harbor Butcher. But didn't he retire? He says he's captain, whatever. I place a tracer in Mr. Morgan's vehicle, and I will be logging locations where Dexter spends significant periods of time, even though he doesn't have a warrant or anything. He's like, Dexter lives in a basement apartment, 7701 First Avenue in Queens, which he found that out. I mean, to me, that seems like invasion of privacy. He doesn't have a warrant. He asked to use their DMV records, and he's got this, so he can go and like harass him. Dexter's son, Harrison Morgan, works at the Empire Hotel. Home unknown. Most days and evening, Dexter drives for a ride-sharing service. He often stops for up to 30 minutes to pick up fares around JFK, LaGuardia, and Grand Central Station. I don't know, I can't speak because I'm trying to do my Batista imitation, which is horrible. Dexter is a man of routine. He frequents 2 different diners and a Cuban joint. And he kind of thinks about it. He's like, the Cubano's decent, but... And he's, well, anyways, Mr. Morgan doesn't spend too much time away from home except to do his ride shares. By establishing his routine in the city, I intend to note any anomalies from his daily pattern so I can be there when he strikes again. And he stops recording. He's like, where are you now, Dexter Morgan? So it's just, I don't know, it's just, I want to know what evidence does he have? So then, why does he ask, isn't he tracking a car? Why is he asking Dexter where he is? So then Dexter's driving. It shifts to like the city streets, and he thinks, he's like, tonight's the night. I could earn a couple of $100 driving people all over the city, but I got a deeper need to fill. So then he turns off the rideshare app thing, so he's not available. He looks at the contacts on his other phone. He deletes Lowell, Mia, and Gareth. He's like, and then there was Al. Harry appears like in a passenger seat. He's like, you're losing all your friends. And Dexter's like, they're not my friends. And then he's like, you're right. The line got a little blurry. And Harry's like, you can't mix your killing life with your personal life. So Dexter calls Al, we see he's packing a suitcase. He says that he was meaning to check up on Red, and he said, there's a lot that happened the other day. Dexter's like, yeah, it'd be good to talk it over with a friend. He asks if he wants to grab a drink tonight. Al says he would, but he's seeing Hamilton tonight. After the show, he's just going to head home. And Dexter's like, home? And Al's like, yeah, back to Wisconsin for me. I'm going to drive through tonight. I know it's a little earlier than I had planned, but to be honest, these little gatherings have lost their luster, with all the deaths, plus the little lady's ovulating. We're going to try for another. It's like, how many kids do they have? I think they already have 3 kids. They just had a baby. And Dexter's like, I can't let him get away, not after seeing his home movie. Then he's like, Hamilton, huh? And Al's like, yeah. Like, wow, expensive tickets, but I do love me a good musical. So Dexter's like, how about we meet up after a coffee before the long drive? He's like, I'm not going to ruin my shot. And then Al's like, well, let's see. It's like, I'll be hungry after. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. There's a spot near all the theaters that has a Cajun pasta to die for. He's like, I'll text it to you. And Dexter's like, Cajun pasta? He says that to Harry. Prater checks out the ballroom where the gala is going to take place. He's very impressed. He tells this lady Vivian, who's like, I guess, coordinating the room, whatever, and with the other, he's like, let's give yourselves a round of applause. And then he's like, kind of looking at Sage. And he thinks wheelchairs, and because he asks her, he's like, remember who this night is for? And she's like, officers injured in line of duty. And then she apologized because she realized. So she starts going on about getting her a ramp. How could she forget? He cuts her off. He's like, says that what she's done is great. She has until the weekend to make it up. It's like, can she do that? And she's like, of course. And she leaves with her people. Or she starts to, but he asks how's her daughter, and she sighs and says the specialist that he sent was a lifesaver, and she's got a clean bill of health, and thank you so much for everything. And he's like, it's my privilege. And then she leaves. Charlie comes in, she gives him a look, and he's like, what? And so they talk private, and she's like, it's not just that everything went sideways when Red joined. I don't have a good feeling. And he's like, feeling? And he scoffs. He's like, I'm sorry, did you say feeling? She's like, let me finish. He's like, I don't fudging care about your feelings, Charlie. I saw Gareth attack Red. We should be thanking him, not questioning his loyalty. And she's like, he's elusive, secretive. And Prater's like, okay, what's this big theory, Charlie? That he infiltrated our group, the one we invited him to, murdered Lowell, got Mia arrested, and orchestrated a fight with Garrett that nearly got him killed? Is that your big theory? And it's funny. It's just like when Batista says it, because when Prater lays it all, he's totally correct, or Charlie's totally correct. But when you say it, it sounds so absurd, even though it's really the facts. She's like, I don't have a theory. That's the problem. I don't know enough about him. I'm worried I might have missed something. He's like, you didn't know enough about Gareth either, that he was some kind of apex predator. She's like, I don't buy it. And he chuckles. And he's like, he was always off. The whole Grandois arrogant incel thing. And she's like, so why this year? And Prater's like, there's no logic to a guy like Gareth. See, you don't understand these people like I do. You say you have a feeling about Red? Well, so do I. I've gotten to know him, and I trust him. She's like, you need to trust me and let me do my job. He's like, I'm sorry, what? What is that again exactly? And she's like, to keep you safe? Then do your job. And he walks away. And she just kind of like clenches her fist. So she's totally right, though. So I don't know what Dexter's going to do. He's going to have to deal with both of them. Harrison explains he's with Dante. They're like at this pond, and he's talking about the different parts of a boat because Dante's controlling like a remote control sailboat at this pond. So I'm assuming you rent it, you pay for it. I don't know. Elsa comes up, and she's like, no wonder he always wants to spend time with you. You spoil him. And Harrison's like, kids should be spoiled. So she thanks him for watching him today, and he asks if there's been any movement with the landlord situation. She says that Vinny won't even turn the heat back on, so forget about the mold. And she thought that she could wait him out, stay at the hotel, withhold rent. But the Empire's booked solid this weekend because all the people coming for the gala, and so there's no rooms. And she was also like, you're gonna have to find some place to stay too. And he like says something, and she's like, well, I'm not worried about that. He's like, he feels like the confrontation with her landlord was his fault, and she's like, well, you need to stop that. It's like, it's not your fault. Then we see Dexter staring at the window of a wig shop. And there's a sign that says, closed, on vacation, see you next month, which is like invitation, like, nobody's here, come rob us. But, maybe there's no money inside, because whatever. And so he's like, a family-owned salon, perfect. I don't have time to gather pictures of Al's victims, but he'll know why he's here. So he breaks in, he sets up a sheet, like plastic sheet inside, and his shoulder's still sore. So, he wonders how is he going to get Al on the table. Batista's like, Dexter's been at the same location for over an hour, 49th and 6th. So he's recording this again. But this is just stupid because it just means his car is parked there. He is parked in the city. Maybe this here's a spot. He could be doing anything around there. Maybe he's eating. Maybe he's made another friend. Maybe, who knows what he's doing? And so he continues. He's like, not his usual rideshare route. No Cuban restaurants. And he turns off the recording and he gathers his stuff. At the police station, we start to hear Staying Alive playing. Wallace is like reading articles about the Bay Harbor butcher, articles about the victims being identified, killer still at large, deceased police sergeant linked to Bay Harbor butcher killings, so dokes, blood slides found in his car, butcher believed to have murdered dozens of criminals who evaded the justice system, Captain Maria LaGuarta killed in shootout with notorious drug lord Hector Estrada. This was like 2012. Longtime Miami officer promoted to captain, 2019. She sees, then his article, there's like that bowling picture of the four, of Dexter, Batista, Quinn, and Masu, I forget the other guy's name. Then Oliva comes in into her office with like a tux, and he like kind of twirls. She takes off the headphone, and she's like, why? He's like, the gala this weekend, you're going too. I sent in your RSVP. And she's like, robotically, she's like, I will not be attending, thank you. And Oliva's like, Chief's orders. Leon Prater donated a Brinks truck full of money to the force over the years. And if he wants to put homicide on stage for a night, that's what's going to happen. She's like, I'm too busy for this. And he's like, doing what exactly? And he tries looking at her screen, but she turns it off. And then she's just like, there is like kind of silent. And she's like, your left jacket sleeve is slightly shorter than your right. He kind of looks at her, then extends his arm and holds his arms out, and you can see his shirt cuff is like sticking out of his left, but not his right, and he like curses. Batista exits the subway like onto the street level, talks into his phone again like a nut. He's like, 3:05 p.m. just arrived, 49th and 6th, Midtown. He's been here for over an hour. He's like, there's a salon, laundromat, office buildings. Where's Dexter's car? So maybe he's doing laundry. He looks at his phone. It says AirPods are 0 miles away, and he curses. He's like, what was Dexter doing here? And he, because he's right at the wig shop salon, and he like turns around, but he has no idea. So Dexter must have, I don't know if he just left, because that's part I was confused, like couldn't find his car. Is there a parking garage maybe around there? I don't know. At Dexter's, Joyce gives him more acupuncture. She says that she's been off her game this week because he's like, ow. Because, she kind of poked him hard or whatever. And to himself, he's like, is this where I'm supposed to ask about her grandma? So he says it must be tough since, she lost her. And she's like, oh, it's not even that. She's like, it's my fiance, Sam. He got into Berkeley this week, his dream business school. And Dexter's like, oh, congratulations. And she's like, right? That would be nice if my dad said that. And we came over to tell him and my mom the good news. And he was such an a-hole. Said the school was for leftist commies, which, by the way, is insane. We're talking about business school. Doesn't get more capitalist than that. So, there's no reasoning with him. And Dexter's like, must be hard. And she's like, I get, he's upset. He lost his mom, and now, he'll be losing me to California. But what? Does he expect me to live within walking distance from him my entire life? I'm 27 years old, for God's sake. And she's like, are you like that with Harrison? Never let him out of your sight? And Dexter's like, no. And she's like, he's a teenager. He's like, you would have way more of an excuse. Dexter's like, maybe, but Blessing losing his mom, considering how she saved him when he was a child. And she's like, I know, I guess I should be more understanding or whatever. I'm sure I can't even imagine what their bond was like, fleeing Sierra Leone when he was a kid. And Dexter's like, yeah, and being a child soldier. And he's, ow. And because she poked him again. She's like, what are you talking about? And Dexter's like, you didn't. She's like, he was a child soldier? And Dexter's like, he didn't want to be. He was kidnapped by a warlord. And she's like, oh my God. Dexter thinks, oops. So she didn't know. She's like, so he told you all this stuff in the 2 weeks you've known him? Dexter's like, and she's like, I'm sorry, I need to go. And he apologizes. He's like, I didn't know. And she says, how could he know? Why would he think that he'd tell him something that he didn't even tell his own? And she starts crying and she walks out. He looks over at the porcelain cat and Harry starts laughing. Way to go, Dex. And he's like, should I have clarified that he only killed one person? Harry's like, I think you've done enough. Besides, you have other business to attend to. So he puts his tools in his trunk. He thinks that in a few short hours he'll nab Al on his way from Hamilton. Says his shoulder's feeling better. He can, probably get him on a table. And then Prater's Kill Club will be officially disbanded. Then he gets a call from Harrison, and he says that he fudged up. Dexter asks if he's okay, and Harrison says he's fine, but he needs his advice on something. So is he free to meet up? And he's like, Dexter's like, 1 sec. And then he thinks, keeping my killing life separate from my personal life is difficult when my personal life keeps calling, asking for help. So he looks up, he just Googles like Hamilton runtime. It says with intermission, 2 hours, 45 minutes total. So he tells Harrison, he's like, can you meet me in the theater district? So they go to an Applebee's. Harrison talks about Elsa and Dante will basically be homeless this weekend. He thinks, it's all because he opened his stupid mouth. And Dexter says that he's like, well, I can relate. So Harrison's like surprised. Dexter says he said something to Blessing's daughter that he shouldn't have. Then Dexter says he thinks that he could talk to the landlord, Vinny, because he could be persuasive. And Harrison's like, persuasive how? He's like, I don't want you to. And Dexter's like, no, of course not that. He's like, he may be an a-hole, but it doesn't make him code-worthy. It's like, maybe the complaints would be taken more seriously coming from me, former law enforcement, I know the lingo. And Harrison's like, yeah, that could work. And Dexter's like, it's worth a try. And Harrison's like, thank you. So he parks outside the theater. He reads reviews on Vinny's apartment, and all these different people said that they won't fix poop. He's like, another says, say goodbye to your security deposit. One person says, owner is a Richard. You know what I'm saying? Someone says the mold is the only thing thriving there, et cetera, et cetera. So Dexter thinks, he's like, guys like Vinny will never respond to the anguish of the people they exploit. They require outside influence. Then he sees an article about family settles lawsuit after tragic death in faulty building in New York. Settled out of court, a railing gave way, record of maintenance request. Tenant 77 died from injuries. So he thinks Vinny's transgressions are more serious than Harrison thought. Adding to that, the pain inflicted on young Dante, and who knows how many tenants he's thrown out in the streets in the middle of a lethal New York winter. And Harry's like, no, Dexter, you're reaching. Vinny doesn't fit the code. And Dexter's like, And Harry says, you're supposed to be disentangling your family life from your killing life, not re-entangling it. He's like, focus on the theater buff at hand. Dexter's like, I am, but I also need to help Harrison. Vinny fitting the code would really streamline things. Harry's like, Dex. And then people start exiting. He looks for Al. He's like, where are you, big guy? And he's like, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, where the fudge are you? So he calls Al. Al's in his car. He's driving. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Red. I texted Prater, but I totally forgot to call you. He's like, I'm sorry, buddy. And Dexter's like, what's up? And Al's like, Hamilton, not what I signed up for. You know, it's a rap show? I couldn't understand a word they said. Total waste of money. I took off at intermission. Dexter's like, you took off? And Al's like, yep, I am driving through Hoboken right now. I should be home by tomorrow night. And Dexter's like, I was really looking forward to getting together one last time. He's like, how about I meet you out that way? And Al's like, I got to get home to the little lady. I'll see you next year if Prater keeps the tradition going. If this year's murders don't mess it all up. And Dexter's like, okay. He's like, well, maybe I'll look you up in Wisconsin if I'm ever in that neck of the woods. He's like, what area are you in anyway? And Al's like, oh, pal. He's like, I try to keep the Prater world separate from my family life. You understand? And he's like, I do. So Al says goodbye, tosses the phone out the window. Dexter thinks, he's like, it kills me to let Al go free for now. So he deletes Al's from his contacts. My dark passenger anticipated having Al on my table. Now what? So Dexter sits with Constance. She asks if he found a place for Prudence cat figurine, and he says that he thinks about it every time he sees him or her, it. And then he's like, I was wondering, what would happen if a tenant found mold in one of your units? And she's like, where, downstairs? And he's like, no, not my apartment. I'm asking for a friend, really. And she's like, oh, thank God. It's like, it's still terrible to hear for your friend, but mold is serious business. It's like, there's laws with this. And she's like, let me get you the tenant landlord handbook. It lays out the New York State law. And then Blessing comes in, she finds a book, gives it to him. And Blessing's like, Dexter, can I talk to you for 1 minute? And he's like, sure. So they go downstairs. Blessing is like pacing. Dexter's like, you want to sit? And he's like, why would you do this to me? Joy called me. I was out driving. She could barely speak. She was crying. She hung up before I could even... How could you tell her about my past? She's never going to look at me the same. She thinks I'm a monster. And he's like, I really don't think she believes that. Of course she does. How could she not? And Dexter's like, you'd be surprised what your kids can handle. Oh, really, Dexter? Just imagine if Harrison knew you had killed a person. And Dexter's like, just one? Or he thinks, just one? I don't understand why you did this to me. I was very clear that part of my life was always to remain separate. I don't remember him saying that, but I wasn't really paying attention. I never wanted to bring that into my home. And Dexter's like, you're right, I'm sorry. And Blessing's like, you betrayed me. And he walks out. So Dexter starts like kind of flipping through the law book. Harry's like, look how upset you are. And he was like, I was trying to help him, his relationship with his daughter. And Harry's like, helping heal relationships? New lane for you, Dex. And he's like, this is why I don't do friends. And Harry's like, honestly, you've been irritable here ever since Al got away. Is this your version of hangry? And he's like, go away, Dad. And then he looks at him, he's gone. He flips more pages. So then Dexter's sitting in the office, and he asks the receptionist, how long until Vinny can see him? Because, he's been waiting for 2 hours. Receptionist is like, sorry, but he's finalizing a big deal on a new apartment building in Harlem. And Dexter thinks, great, more lives ruined. She says that she can check if he's almost done, so she calls him, and you can hear him say, is that a-hole still out there? Tell him to come back tomorrow. I'm going to lunch. So she hangs up, smiles. She's like, I'm sorry, but his call ran long and he's late for a lunch. Is there a day next week that works? Dexter gets up, opens the door to the office, and she's like, oh, you can't go in there. And Vinny's like, what the hell is this? And Dexter's like, I need to speak to you about an issue in one of your buildings. And Vinny's like, are you with the city? He's like, no. Are you a lawyer? Nope. Then get the fudge out of my office. Fudge, Leanne, what the fudge? I'm not running a fudging circus here. And she's like, I'm sorry, sir. I told him he couldn't go in there. Do your fudging job. And then Dexter thinks, he's like, Harrison showed incredible restraint. Not killing this guy? I hope I can be like my son. So Harrison's outside the little college place. Gigi's wrapping up another tour. She sees Harrison standing around like a creep. And he said he stopped by the financial aid office. He's officially applying. And she's like, that's amazing. She asked if he told them that she gave him the tour. And he's like, what? She's like, I get a commission when you apply. And Harrison's like, wait, really? And she's like, no, I'm totally fudging with you. So it's like, wow, every single thing that they say to each other is like a joke / lie, which would be so annoying. He's like, you suck. And she's like, it's going to be so much fun having you around. And then he's like, would you maybe, you want to hang out sometime? And she's like, how about tonight? He's like, tonight, you like to dance? I can get us into a pretty cool spot. Like, Harrison doesn't seem a dancing type, but what do I know? Vinny leaves his office at night. Dexter's like bent over in his trunk, and he turns around like perfect time. He has pantyhose over his head. He like bumps into him, injects Vinny, and he's like, what? And he shoves him into his trunk. And he almost gets seen. There's a person like walking down the street, just totally oblivious because no one pays attention. And he's like, turns out there was a silver lining to Al skipping town. Now I have a place to take the slumlord king of New York. It's true what they say. When one door closes, another one opens into a fully prepped kill room. So the camera like pans to the AirPods case in the door, which is so stupid because like if we could see it from that angle, he should be able to see it too. Because it's like not in that like deep of a like pocket cup holder or whatever. So then we see dancing at the, like, I think it's the Empire rooftop, I don't know. So probably scenes of them dancing, sitting, having a drink, and then something's bothering her. So it keeps like flashing from like the dancing to the sitting, the talking, whatever. So he asks her like, what is it? She says that her dream of becoming a detective is not happening. So it's like, at first it's like, is this another joke? But she says that the nerve damage to her wrist is permanent, so she would never make it through the academy. And he's like, oh, I'm really sorry. But it's like, could Joy do something with her acupuncture maybe? I don't know. I'm not no acupuncturist. But she says she doesn't even want to give up on everything, you know? And he's like, you don't have to. He's like, my dad was a forensic blood splatter analyst in Miami. He put away, you know, a ton of criminals without ever wearing a police uniform. Even if you don't end up being a detective, there's still options in law enforcement. And it's like she's a tour guide at this college, but he knows more about this than she does. So she says thanks, you know, she appreciates that. And she's like, with the nerve damage, her fingers keep locking up. And it's weird because she only injured one arm, but it's happening to both hands now. And I was like, wait, what could that mean? I was like, shouldn't she get that checked out? But then she gives him a double bird and smiles, and they both laughed. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. So cut to them in a room, and then slamming against the wall, and then the bed, and then do-do-do. In the kill room, Dexter still has the pantyhose, you know, around his head. He snaps a smelling salt. Vinny wakes up. He says, WTF, a couple times. He's like, who are you? Dexter lifts the knife. He's like, don't kill me, don't kill me, don't kill me. No, no. Dexter puts a blade up to his throat. I'm here for your tenants. This is the end of you ignoring their pleas. He's like, wait, is this about the Devanchis or Sheila, Elsa, the Johnson family? Please. He's like, what the fuck? And then he covers his mouth. Dexter's, you know, he's wearing gloves. He's like, it's because of all of them, especially the ones who can't breathe because of the mold in your apartments. Imagine how that feels, not knowing when or if you'll be able to take your last breath. And he like whispers, the panic rising. Then loser Batista exits a cab. He has, you know, nothing else to do. He looks around, and I guess there's no possibility that Dexter might park his car and be visiting someone or doing anything nearby. So he's back to talking to himself, recording. He's back at the same location. What the hell is he doing? But it's like Batista has no warrant, no jurisdiction. And again, is he still with the police department? Or, you know, because he retired. How long was he waiting in Iron Springs when Dexter was in a coma? Because, you know, he was there when he woke up. And to fly from Miami, I mean, maybe it was the next day. I don't know. And then, of course, he stares right at the wig shop, the salon. And, oh no, the light is on. That must mean he's there. But maybe they have it on a timer. Maybe they forgot to switch it off. Maybe someone's cleaning. Maybe they're fumigating. You know, it's just like automatically he's suspicious. So Dexter still has his hand over Vinny's mouth. He's like, sometimes I think it's easier for a person to die than change. Do you think you can change? And Vinny tries nodding. Outside, Batista's like picking the lock. It's like, what? So now he's breaking and entering with no jurisdiction. So Dexter's like, if you don't start doing right by your tenants, I'll be disappointed. And you don't want to disappoint me. Batista clicks the lock. Dexter hears it and removes his hand. Then he like gasps. Batista, he's like starting to enter. He takes his gun out. And again, no authority. And Dexter thinks, time for Vinny to become someone else's problem. So he raises a knife. Vinny screams. Batista enters, and it almost looks like he's like in a grocery shop. Maybe it's the front of the store or just a wig shop. I don't know, but it didn't look like the salon. At first, I was like, is he somewhere else? But no, he's in the right place. He sees a shadow behind like some plastic in the back. He points a gun. He's like, is he going to shoot the wrong person? It's Vinny. And Vinny's like, he's going to kill me. Out of my way, you rock sucker. And he plows right into Batista. Batista goes down. And he gets up. He's like, wait. And he hears a car like take off. And so he's like sitting there like, which way should he go, front or the back? He goes through the back, through the plastic, and then out the back. He curses, looks on his phone. Dexter's car is moving. Curses again, goes back inside, and sees the room is wrapped in plastic. And he's like, WTF? He finally calls Wallace just as she shuts the light off in her office, and she debates. She goes back in to answer. And he's like, Detective Wallace, it's Batista. I found the proof that I was looking for, that the Bay Harbor Butcher is still active, still killing. And she's like, proof? By the Bay Harbor Butcher? He's like, that's right. And she's like, what proof? He's like, let me forward you the address. You can come see for yourself. In his car, Dexter's like, how the hell did Batista find me? He kind of like looks around, not very well. He pulls over, checks like the wheel wells, like underneath the car, like is there any like magnetic things on there? He goes and he's on the other side, the passenger side, looks in the back seat, empties out his like goodie treat bag with like water and all the snacks in that, empties on the back seat. There's nothing there. Opens the passenger door, looks in the visor, the glove box. Then he finally sees the AirPods. He takes them out and he stomps on them on the sidewalk. And at first I was like, no, don't put him somewhere else, someone else's car. I guess he would figure it out. We just stomps on them, and it's actually good that he does. So the doctor's like, I'm putting an end to this. So Batista says to Wallace, he's like, so this is his kill room. It's fresh. I got here before he could take it down. And she's like, they're both there, Wallace and Oliva. She's like, where's the body? And Batista's like, no, I got here in the nick of time. I stopped him from killing him. And Oliva's like, you fought Mr. Morgan? Where is he? And Batista's like, no, there was a man, a big mother trucker. He was covered in plastic. And Wallace is like, did you free him? And he's like, no, Dexter must have freed him. And Oliva's like, why would the Bay Harbor Butcher do that? And Batista's like, he must have heard me break in. He's like, you broke in? Wallace is like, and you saw him? And Batista's like, no, but I heard his car. Which is ridiculous. So Oliva's like, but you didn't see it. And she's like, or him. He's like, no, he drove away. And he puts his hands together. He's like, I didn't see him, but I was this close. She's like, I do not understand. But he's like, the man wrapped in plastic on the table. He ran away. He was so terrified that he ran right over me. Wallace and Oliva just kind of like look at each other. He's like, but he was here. She's like, and why did he run away? And Batista's like, because he was scared of the Bay Harbor Butcher. Wallace like, the man who ran, the would-be victim, did you get his name, identification? Batista's like, it all happened so fast, I made sure to call you. She gives Oliva another like wide-eyed look, like what is he talking about? He's like, I can describe him. He's big, thick, black hair, Italian maybe. Oliva's like, big, thick Italian guy. Sounds like half the cops we work with. And so Wallace is like, how did you find this place? And he's like, I put a tracker in Dexter Morgan's car. She's like, oh, you have a warrant? He's like, well, it was just AirPods. I left my AirPods in his car, so I ended up using them to track him. He didn't leave them there, he put them there. But Oliva's like, you broke into his car? But he's like, no, he gave me a ride from his apartment. It's a long story. And he takes out his phone. He's like, look at this. But he turns on the thing, no location found. He's like, poop, it was following. And he's like, look, I'm not lying. Dexter must have found it. He must have destroyed it. He's smart. And Batista, when he says he's smart, he actually points to his temple, which makes him look even more insane. And he's like, find himself out of everything. Listen to this. And he plays one of his recording. 305, p.m. Just arrived, 49th and 6th, Midtown. He's been here for over an hour. There's a salon, laundromat, office buildings. He turns off the audio. But it's like, that doesn't say anything. They just like stand there. And he's like, well, why are you looking at me like that? And Oliva's like, how are we looking at you? And he's like, what, you think I put all this plastic up myself? And Wallace kind of tilts her head. She's like, strange you should say that. Is it not, Captain Batista? Harrison's alarm goes off. He looks at Gigi sleeping in his bed. They go down the lobby in the elevator. She's smiling, and he's like, what? She's like, I just always pictured my first time was going to be in a fancy hotel. And then I'm just like, oh my God. Here we go again. Harrison's like, you're fudging with me. And she laughs. You're finally catching on. What, that she's a compulsive liar? They start smooching, the elevator dings as they get out. At Dexter, Harry's like, guess your warning to Batista to get out of town didn't go so well. Dexter's like, he's out there somewhere, I can feel it. Harry's like, Dex, you were supposed to be getting under his skin, not letting him get under yours. Dexter's like, he could be heading here with NYPD. Harry's like, Vinny never even saw your face. You didn't leave any prints behind, no DNA. You didn't even kill anyone, which would have really screwed you, by the way. So, good going. Dexter's like, I was never going to kill him. Harry like scoffs. He's like, well, lucky for you, Al skipped town, because you would have definitely, were going to kill him. Dexter's like, he could have bugged the place. And Harry's like, Dex, he used AirPods to follow you. A high-tech, department-supported investigation, this is not. He's acting alone. Dexter's like, still, he won't let it go. He's never going to give up. Not until... And Harry's like, until he's got you behind bars? And Dexter's like, what am I supposed to do with that? And Harry's like, you could stop killing. And Dexter scoffs. Wallace looks at the Bay Harbor Butcher article on Dokes. She cycles through all the others. Bodies being identified, like Huerta killed in a shootout, longtime officer, promoted captain. Then we see a crime scene in Miami. Quinn, there's a body on pavement. Quinn gets a call transferred to him. Operator says a call from NYPD. And she's like, hello. And she introduced herself. She's like, I'm calling to check on the status of one of your cases. He's like, and what would that be? She's like, the Bay Harbor Butcher. And there's like a pause. And she's like, hello? Quinn's like, sorry, did you say the Bay Harbor Butcher? She's like, correct. And he's like, yeah, that case has been closed for years. She's like, I met your Captain Angel Batista, who's actively pursuing it. And he's like, what? And then she like looks at her phone. She's like, is this a bad connection? She's like, I said your captain. He's like, yeah, no. He's not our cap. I mean, he was our captain, but he retired. He up and quit out of nowhere. It was crazy, which is great. Perfect that he says that. And it's crazy. So again, he's not, why he has his badge. And this is the thing, you retire, you get to keep your badge as a memento, but he's abusing it. He's using it. When he went to, what's that guy, Lance, who bought Dexter's truck off of Harrison, he acted like he's police. And so he is just so crazy. She's like, Angel Batista? And Quinn's like, yeah, look, he's a really good guy. He is, but and she's like, he is no longer an active law enforcement officer. Quinn's like, no, and I don't know what the fudge he's doing in New York. And she looks at the bowling picture again. At the diner, Dexter has some steak. Harrison's like, you should have seen how happy she was. Dante is going to be okay now. There's no more stress about where they're going to have to live. Seriously, Dad, thank you so much. And Dexter's like, sounds like he listened. And Harrison's like, what did you say to him? Quick flashback to Vinny's muffled screaming. Dexter's like, I think I said something like, you got to realize your actions have consequences for the people around you. Harrison's like, you scared him, didn't you? Dexter just smiles. He's like, I'm just glad he's taking care of the mold. Hopefully he'll be a better landlord from here on out. Harrison like stares at him, and Dexter's like what? And Harrison's like, you say I have a thing for justice? I think you do too, Dad. And Dexter's like, huh, maybe. And Harrison's like, by the way, do you think it'd be cool if I spent the weekend at your place? And then it's like, oh crap. Dexter stops and just stares for a bit. So it's like, wait, what's going on? What's his problem? Then it's kind of blurry. So Dexter's like staring out, it's blurry, but then you see, here comes Prater walking towards him, starting to come into focus. And he's like, Red, I didn't know you had a son.
which is kind of ridiculous. Like he's just with this. It could be his nephew. It could be what? Who knows what? Maybe. Hopefully he's not like a pervert or anything. But and then cut to Charlie standing outside by the car smiling, and Prater kind of like smiles inside at him. So yeah, he called him Red in front of which is crazy that you're approaching, because the whole thing is like Al. If Al was there with his family, is Prater going to walk up to him? Because it's supposed to be separate. So he's like overstepping. It would be the same, like if Dexter saw Prater, he's not going to go up to him and like, hey, thanks, for dinner the other night. That's the end of the episode. So it's like, oh man. But yeah, I'm digging it. It is ridiculous. No idea what's going to happen next. All right, Twisted Metal, season 2, episode 7. This one confused me a little bit. I'm going to admit I cheated at the end. I'm like, what? Because it's H1T, hit, NRVN. So Nervin, hit, Nervin. It's supposed to be hit N and then RVN. I'm pretty sure it was a V, and I don't think I'm crazy. But it's supposed to be hit and run. All right. So contestants are working their vehicles in the shop. John's complaining. He's about something. He's like, stupid, stupid, stupid. Axel comes up behind. He's like, stress wrenching, huh? John looks at him. He's like, I figured you was over here wrenching because of your fine-ass sister, which I get. But now that I see your sorry-ass face, it ain't all grief. You're looking like a guilty mother trucker. And John's like, whoa, 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 whoa. He's like, all right. I did something behind Quiet's back. And Axel's like, so? And John's like, so? I don't know what I'm going to do about it, man. It's like, I never lied to her before. And Axel's like, hold up. You saying you never lied to your girl before? And John's like, no. Then Axel moves like, punch him in the crotch or something like that, or reach out. And John's like, hey, what are you doing, man? He's like, just checking if your bitch ass got any nuts down there. John's like, you're going to get your answer when I smoke your rusty ass, which that doesn't even make any sense. Axel just takes like a swig of gas and belches. He's like, you make a run at me, I will end you. He's like, coroner going to list your cause of death as everything. And it's like, that include like a kiss on the cheek or, giving me flowers. It's like everything. But he's like, feel me? And John's kind of like flinching back, so he's intimidated. And then Axel like leans over some more, pulls something off the car, and he like kisses it, and he's like, mine. And Quiet walks up, and John's like, good morning, Quiet. And she apologized for sleeping in. She said that she forgot how good a pillow feels. And she's like, was that our gun? And John's like, don't worry about it. We'll get another one. Roadkill was begging for some upgrades. So I figured I'd just jump on it. She's like, you're in a very good mood. It's weird. He's like, I'm just excited to get out there and show these losers what John can, what Quan can do. And he's like, it's Quiet and John. And she's like, no, I will not be participating in Quan. And he's like, that's fine. And he's like, Quan's in the rear view. And he's like, fudge Quan, like loud. And she looks at him like he's weird because he's being weird. So he's like, roadkill is ready to go. The last thing we need is figure out, is this boomerang blast. Do we mount it or do we keep it in the back for emergencies? And they both like in the back. So then there's a loud scraping sound. Mayhem's dragging this like really big gun. Quiet's like, it's going to be hard to kill someone with a gun that heavy. And she's like, I'll have you know, I've killed tons of people with a gun just like this, dozens of dudes. I'm a friggin' murder slut. And Quiet scoffs, and Mayhem goes back to dragging. And she's about to say something, and then she's like, no, she's not our responsibility. We just have to focus on the mission. And John's like, right, the mission. Raven looks around, and she's like, dang, there are some tight buttholes in here. Frostbite says that they'll be killing each other soon or something like that. Raven says, that they're outsiders, so what else is new? Axel comes up, and Raven asks what he wished for. He's like, I'm not telling you, you poop. I think he called her like bitch or something like that. And he's like, what if it's like birthday cake rules? If I say my wish, it won't come true? The holy men are like, we wish for our child to grow up happy, loved, and wanting for nothing. Nothing except the end of this world and the rise of a new reality formed in his image. Raven starkly asks Frostbite, and she says she wishes to feel warm again. Someone says something to her, I forget, whatever. Dave and Mike come up, and Dave says that wishes are overrated. He doesn't even want one. He's like, you know why? Because I'm living the fudging dream. I told my bestie over here, I was like, I don't want the pressure. It's like, you make the wish. I don't want to be on the hook for it.
And Mike's like, and my wish, and then exterminator lady pops up, cuts him off, and interrupts. So we don't get to hear Mike's wish. She's like, guess what I wish for? I wish to exterminate humanity. Let somebody else take over for once. And she looks at this bug she has in a jar. Axel's like, now you see the poop I got to put up with? He's like, this freak got me smelling like Raid cologne. And Chucky Floop says that he wished for the ability to fly. He's like, pretty sick, right? He says that he was going to wish to enhance himself, but he's never had any complaints. Quiet walks by and says that she finds that hard to believe. And Chucky's like, oh, what'd you wish for? And Raven's like, oh, yes, I'm dying to know. So they come over to Quiet, and she's like, to bring down the city walls. And Mike's like, which walls? Mr. Graham's like, which cities? And she's like, all of them. When we win, all the walls will come down. Raven's like, damn, you're making us all look bad over here. Quiet says, we think insiders and outsiders should finally be on an even playing field. And John's like, yeah, it's time for the outsiders to get their fair share. Raven's like, I knew you two were stupid, but I didn't realize you were naive. It'd be cute if it weren't so sad. And Quiet's like, it's not naive to fight for a better world. And she's like, oh, listen to yourself. Do you think you're some kind of superhero? Not with that greasy hair. And Dave's like, okay. He's like, I think you look great. And that to Quiet. He's like, and that's not objectifying. I'm just supporting. Raven's like, people need walls. It simplifies things. You're either one or the other, inside or out. The Mayhem's like, look, all your wishes are fudging stupid, okay? Me, I'm going to be invincible. And there's lots of laughing. And Chucky's like, ooh, Widow Baby wants to be invincible? And he's like, hey, why don't you wish for a diaper so you don't poop yourself and run away? The deacon wanted to hold him in. He's like, hey, we got plenty of diapers. And Mayhem's like, fudge off. And Calypso comes in. He's like, welcome to the most anticipated first round of the Twisted Metal Tournament. 12 cars will enter my labyrinth, but alas, there are only 8 exit passes hidden throughout. Be sure to snag one, because if you attempt to leave the area without it, well, you'll be killed instantly. This is warehouse district warfare. And everyone stares like confused, and he's like, you'll know where a pass is hidden by the pillars of red smoke, all except for you, John and Quiet. And it's like, wait, what does that mean? Because of different wishes, something to disqualify? He's like, you two finished last in my qualifier, so I decided to spice things up a bit and give you two a small advantage for today's bloody festivities. And he holds up this little device. He's like, this is radar. He's like, displaying the precise location of all 8 passes. People start grumbling. Sweet Tooth yells, he's like, cheaters. And Calypso's like, and that's not all. You'll also be getting a 1-minute head start. And he like claps. Raven's like, this is BS. And she like shoves her way through to the front. And he's like, do you have a problem with the way I'm running my game, Raven? And she doesn't reply, but she actually takes like a step back. And he's like, I hope you and your vehicles are ready, my drivers, because it's time for the tournament to begin. Opening logo, credits, whatever. So drivers sit outside in their vehicles. John looks at the radar, asks Quiet if she thinks it's like a compass, one of those arrow things. And he's like, yo, maybe it's a line that shows you what road to drive down. He's like, that'd be sick. She's like, well, whatever it is, I don't think it's worth the target you put on our backs. He's like, come on, giving us an advantage is like giving a line a submachine gun. We're gonna crush this round and the next round, and we're gonna destroy. And a round after that, they better kiss her sorry ass goodbye. She's like, okay, why don't we just focus on this first round? And she like pulls a doll face mask like out of her jacket and puts it by the gear shift thing. She's like, I thought she should come with us to remind us of the mission. John just like stares at it. He's like feeling guilty now. And Quiet's voice starts like echoing, and he's not really hearing her, because she's like, she would want to be here. The radar beeps and turns on. Roadkill, your 1 minute begins now. So they drive. And so one's coming up. She tells him, turn right, like here. He looks at the mask, and she's like, dude, turn. He's like, I got it. And she's like, not left, right. Poop, John, take the next left. He's like, got it. And he looks at the mask again. And she's like, John. Tire squeals, car stops. She's like, John, you good? He's like, yeah. I have a great idea. How about you drive and I do the map thing? She's like, but I drove last time. He's like, I know, but this is really important, and I really love maps. She's like, all right. And she backs up and turns. She's like, we can't blow this head start. Stu, in their car, gets the lighter fluid, and Sweet Tooth like tells him to stand down. Stu's like, good, because we're running low on this stuff. Sweet Tooth says that it's not about conservation. Yesterday he lost his cool, but Stu has inspired him not to hold grudges. So Stu's like, so you don't hate Grimm anymore? He's like, oh no, I want to rip out his spine, but that does nothing for my legacy. History remembers winners, Stubert. So as they're John and quiet, John's like, make a left. I think, poop, you should have gone right. She's like, Jesus, John, we have the advantage. Get it together. He's like, I'm sorry, there's so many triangles. Then they hear the loud booms. And he's like, what's that? She's like, our minute's up. So you can see like red smoke rising in different spots that's showing everyone where they're at. She's like, there goes our head start. Mayhem like drives through like a fence and finds Axel shooting at her. So she like curses, squeals her tires. He yells, he's like, out of my way, kid. But it's like he's chasing her, or maybe they're just, she's going the same direction that he was going. And then he's like, beep, beep, Axel coming through. So he turns and goes through like a chain link fence towards like a smoke pyre. Mayhem curses. John and Quiet, they get to a building with the smoke. They get out of a car inside. It also, at first I thought, is there like regular smoke in there? But no, it's because it's like a giant ice rink. So in the middle, there's like a hand holding a pass. And John's like, whose hand is that? And she's like, who cares? So she's like, let's just get the pass. And he's like, oh, relax. Even with the radar, it took us a while to find this place. So it's going to take the others just as, and then the two holy men and baby are also there. And Deacon's like, 4 of us going after one hot ticket? And he says something. Sweet Tooth and Stu are there as well. And Sweet Tooth's like, looks like we're having a party. And what's a party without a clown? And Stu's like, 2 clowns. Raven's there. And she's like, keep your hands off the hand, you weirdo, it's mine. They all like look at each other. You know, we see like their close up of their eyes are all like start going towards it. But because it's ice, they're starting to slip. And Raven's like crawling. Stu slides. And Sweet Tooth's like, go, my penguin. Deacon like slides the baby, and Stu yells, that baby's got a gun. So the baby's actually holding a gun. It shoots him in the shoulder, but then the force like makes it go sliding back. But what's weird is, so I don't forget, so later Stu has no mark on him. So it's like, where did he get shot? Because I could have swore like some blood splattered, whatever. So Quiet, she manages to grab the pass, but then Raven takes out her gun. She's gonna shoot her. John sees it, takes his too. He shoots, and then like the impact like makes him lose his footing. He bumps Quiet. She gets knocked down by John. The pass slides over to Sweet Tooth's feet. He grabs it, but then he slips. We see Mayhem driving. There's a missile. Someone shot a missile at her from behind. It like almost hits her. She's like, who shot that? It hits this propane tank next to her, big ball of flames and everything. She kind of drives through it. She veers off and she kind of crashes into like the side of a building. Like it's like a metal building, so she doesn't like go through it or anything like that. She looks up and she sees red smoke there, so she's like awesome or whatever. So she gets out to go after the pass. She goes inside, but around the corner is Chucky Floop's car, so he's already in there. So Mayhem goes in. She finds that the hand's empty, and Chucky can be heard laughing. And then he stupidly pulls out of his jacket. He's like, oh, looking for this? And she's like, yeah, and I'm going to take it. He chuckles. He's like, I'd like to see you try. You know, I'm not afraid to hit a girl. And she's like, good, because I'm not afraid to smash a wussy. But it's like, you know, she's all talk. He like scoffs, and he motions for her to come forward. She screams and starts kicking. She actually manages to knock the pass out of his hand, because I guess he surprised her too. Surprised me. She kicks him and swings, but she misses. Then he grabs like her arms, headbutts her. He hits her, and she like ends up back at the hand. And he laughs. He's like, "You done yet?" And then she's, because of course everyone's got to have like these witty lines and whatever comebacks. She's like, "No, I just needed a hand." So she yanks it out. It's like, how could she know that it would come out so easily? I mean, she had to pull a little bit. She gets it out, and then she swings it, hits him, knocks out a couple of his teeth, like slow motion. Then she like runs, she like double feet kicks him, and he flies out the window. She gets up and she's like, oh my God. She goes to the window. He landed on the roof of her car. She's like, oh my God, I fudging killed him. So she is not a murder slut or whatever she called herself. She killed him, and she's like kind of in shock. The announcer says that the 6th pass has been secured. Quiet is like sitting in a car. John comes running out, and she's like, what happened to you? He's like, turns out vermin can really fight. I can't believe a creepy crawler lady got the pass. It's like, poop, it was in my hand. And he's like taking all this stuff. I wasn't sure he was pulling something off him. So Quiet takes off. She's like, what the heck is going on today? He's like, oh, it's my fault. He's like, I'm tilting. She's like, what the hell is tilting? But it's like, why doesn't he just say that he's upset that his sister is dead? Because, that could be distracting. But he doesn't mention that. He's like, you make a few mistakes. You get in your head. And she's like, no more superstitious BS. He's like, we're a team, right? So we fix this. He's like, right. There are only 2 more passes. One's a few blocks away. She says that, she's going to take a shortcut. She turns, but then she has to slam on the brakes because there's a big metal storage container blocking the way. And she's like, now your superstitious BS is rubbing off on me.
Mayhem runs out of the building. Stupidly, she's holding the pass in her hand instead of putting it in her pocket. She's got this big baggy jacket. She could put it somewhere. So someone's going to see it, but she curses because she sees like Chucky's body. Like the back of her roof is kind of caved in. So I don't know if she could still drive, or maybe, I don't know about the front, but she hears gunfire in the distance. She reaches into his pocket, finds his keys, clicks the fob and hears a beep. So she runs around the corner, she gets in, and then the car, there's a voice, "Welcome back, Chucky Floop." And she's like, "Holy spit, who said that?" And then the car's like, "New driver detective. Would you like me to create a new profile?" She's like, "Fudge, fine, start a new profile, go." "Acknowledge. New primary driver accepted. Please state your name." And she's like, "Fudging Mayhem, just come on." Well, and so you know what's going to happen. "Welcome aboard, Fudging Mayhem." And she drives, and she's like, "A talking car, okay, that's fine." And she's like, "Oh, God, murder makes you sweaty. Initiating AC." It like blows her. She's like, "Okay, you can stop." Then she asks the car if the car has a name. "My current designation, VIN, is number 4, B as in boy, 1, Q as in quattro." And she's like, "Yeah, quattro's fine." He's like, "You got to move faster." "Designation updated, quattro." She drives, she hits a few random barrels, almost like she's aiming for him. "Exterior damage sustained. Shall I initiate autonomous navigation?" She's like, "No, I don't need your help. I just need to get out of here." And then she swipes like this big metal pipe. "Shall I initiate autonomous navigation?" And she's like, "Fine, if you think you're so good at driving, just do it. Acknowledge." Then she starts digging it, and she gets in the passenger seat, and she grabs an assault rifle, and she leans out the passenger window, and she's like, "Keep it steady, and I'll smoke these losers." So I guess she's okay with the killing now. But then she gets back in. She's like, "Wait, this is the end? How'd you do that?" And the car's like, "Maps." And then she drives through a checkpoint. Sweet Tooth tells Stu to check it out. They're about to win. And, he didn't think about Grim even once, not even his dinky little bike. He's like, "I could still hear it buzzing in my head." And this is where you see that Stu doesn't have any injuries on him. So I'm like, what? So Grim is actually driving up behind him. So that's probably why he hears it. He jumps his motorcycle into the back of their Sweet Tooth car, and they drive through the checkpoint. And he's like, "Thanks for the lift, Marcus." And he takes off. Sweet Tooth curses. He says that, he's like, "That's not very sportsmanlike. I'm going to lodge a complaint." And he says that even if he didn't get in their way, they would have come in first or something like that. Stu points. There's 4 other vehicles already there, and he starts saying something. But then Sweet Tooth's like, "No, Stu, no words." So Quiet and John drive. He says not to add any pressure, but FYI, there's 1 pass left. This is her last shot. She curses. The holy men are ahead of them. Deacon starts shooting at them. The other dude runs out with the pass. So it's like, wait, is their car completely bulletproof? Because Quiet's just sitting there, not even flinching or anything. You're not even worried about going through the glass or whatever. She's like, "I'm gonna get that GD pass." She tells John to cover her, so he shoots a few rounds from the gun at the front of the car. Then she starts swinging at the other dude, the dude with the pass. He gets hit, but then ducks most of her swings. And he says that she looks mad, and she's like, "It's been a bad day." The fighting continues. John runs out of bullets, so he leans back, grabs the boomerang gun. He says that he's like, "Oh, I really should have tested it first." He gets out, and he's like, "Where the hell did he go?" Deacon is behind him, punches him, takes the gun, the missile gun. They both get in the car. The holy men get in. They take off. John and Quiet drive after him. She yells, "If we don't get that pass, it's over." Deacon turns to the baby in the back seat. "Preacher, we could really use your guidance right now." And the baby's like, "Kill them." So then they're like, "He is risen." They both, maybe this is the first time he talks, they both laugh and everything like that. So Deacon pops through the sunroof. He shoots the missile. Quiet's like, "Oh my God, it's coming. It's because it's coming right at them." And then it kind of right before it hits them, it stops in midair, and then it reverses, fire starts coming out the other end. And then, and Quiet's like, "Huh, boomerang blast." And she's like, "What?" But it's like, "What about the pass?" So they go to wreckage. You see one of the bodies laying outside the car. They heard a baby crying, or not really crying, but fussing. Baby's still in the car seat, holding the pass, kind of chewing on it, teething on it. John tries taking it, but he can't pull it, and baby starts giggling. Quiet's like, "Take it already, it's a baby." He's like, "I'm trying." He's fudging strong. And he's like, "Fudge you, preacher." He cocks his fist like he's about to punch, but Quiet's like, "John," to stop him. They drive with the baby in the back. He's crying now. They go through a checkpoint. Sweet Tooth, he put a door in the back of the truck. He's like, "No more unwanted visitors. Seal her up."
So there's a welding torch by Harold, the paper bag. Stu's like, should I do it? I have thumbs and hands. And Sweet Tooth's like, no, Harold's got it. And he says that about what he said before. He's like, forget it all. He's like, grudges are back on the menu. So are blood-fusing vendettas. He's like, when it comes to killing, I just got to lead with my heart. And it's weird because as he says that, Stu looks at Mike. So I don't know if does Stu have feelings for Mike besides friendship? I don't know. And then the welding torch falls and Sweet Tooth is like, Harold, no, don't pick it up. It's hot. Mayhem talks to the car, says it really does know how to drive. And she says that she hopes if it's down that they could team up again in the next round. Saving Fudging Mayhem's presets. Fudging Mayhem presets saved. And she's like, hey, Quattro, could I maybe ask your advice? Interface battery at 10%, entering sleep mode. And she's like, yeah, okay, yeah. She's like, thanks for saving my ass out there, Quattro. Acknowledge. And it like beeps and like goes into sleep mode. Quiet asks if there's lost and found for human children. Then Calypso pops up. He's like, I'll take the baby. And they like give him a look. He's like, what? The child will be safe with me, unless you would prefer to care for him. She's like, no, you have. And John's like, abso-fudging-lutely not. So they hand him over. And Calypso's like, look at you. You'll want for nothing with Daddy Calypso. And he looks at them. He's like, congratulations on surviving the first round. Enjoy the moment. Things only get harder from here. He said he's going to take the baby to delouse. Mayhem comes up to him for some reason, and she's like, so, you guys didn't die. Good job. And Quiet's like, thanks, you too. And it's kind of like an awkward pause. Mayhem kind of like looks down. Quiet kind of nudges John to excuse him. He's like, oh, I guess I'll go clean up. So Quiet's like, you good? You seem different. And she's like, I'm good. I killed someone today. And Quiet's standing there like, yeah. And Mayhem stares at her. And then Quiet gets it. She's like, oh, was that your first? And she like nods. She's like, oh, I just assume. And Mayhem's like, I had a big body count. She's like, no, I mean, I've done like, hand stuff, like stabbing and poop, but never went all the way until today. So it's almost like they're talking about something else, obviously. And Quiet's like, wow, okay, tell me everything. Who was it? And she's like, don't laugh. Chucky Flute. And it was kind of whatever. Quiet's like, I'm not laughing. Mayhem's like, I guess I just thought that my first kill would be, I don't know, with someone special. And Quiet's like, ugh, no, it's better this way. For your first, you want to kill someone you barely care about and never think about them again. So then Mayhem's like, how old were you when you had your first kill? And Quiet's like, well, I was a late bloomer. There was this blueberry picker at the OC, just kept hassling me, so I got him with my hatchet. Although he didn't die right away, so I'm not sure if it officially counts. It was just a tip. And Mayhem's eyes like go wide. In their classroom, whatever, John is like, how's the kid? And Quiet's like, fine. And she takes off her jacket. She's sore. She's like, we can't afford another day like this. This is life and death. And he's like, it was just a bad day. He's like, poop happens. And she's like, not like today. She's like, I've never seen you like this. But his sister just got, that he just got back, died. And he's like, maybe the stress of the round got to me. Like you said, it's life or death. She's like, but you were fine in the qualifier with missiles falling out of the sky. So what changed? And it's like, duh, his sister is dead now. That's changed. She's like, John, what's going on? Is it us? Is it me? He's like, no, it's me. It's all me. I'm sorry. She's like, sorry for what? He's like, for today. She's screwing up the radar, being so clumsy on the smoothest fudging ice in the world, for coming with you at all. He's like, I lied to you, Quiet. And her jaws like starts opening. He's like, I made my own wish. And she's just like in shock, fade to black. That's the end of the episode. I think she'll understand, but I mean, she has the right to be upset because she was the one supposed to be doing. He came along with her. He wasn't even supposed to be there. It's not his race. He was just joining her. So we'll see. Is she okay with Krista, with Dollface coming back, or is she going to be upset because their idea of tearing down the walls, making insiders outsiders, basically just for one person instead of everyone? But she can't blame him. It's his sister. We'll see. So that was episode 7. Okay, Alien Earth, season 1, episode 4, Observation. This show is kind of making me a little antsy with stuff that's happening with Morrow and Slightly, and it's just like, yeah. So it starts off. There's like some. It's weird because they do. I don't know the reason for this, but we get a lot of these like random flashes, like stuff that's coming up or stuff that has happened, and it's a little annoying, but it's also a little interesting because we get some scenes from last episode mixed with like this beach, and then there's like a head washed up,
So then it's like, is this something that's going to happen? What does this mean? And then it's like, wait, is it a doll's head? Is it a synth's head? Like, what's going on? Then we see Wendy lying in a lab. Kirsch and Dame Sylvia are standing over her because it's like, what's going on with Wendy? Because she collapsed in the lab, and I was so confused by that. So they're talking, but there's no sound. This tech guy, Arthur, so I finally remember his name. So Arthur is apparently married to Sylvia. So this is my problem when there's so many characters. So I'm just finally getting the hang of who they are. So he says that he turned the sound off, but then we can start to hear. But I think it's still off for Wendy, because Kirsch says that Wendy mentioned a sound a moment that they landed, and it was louder to closer to the xenomorph that she got. And then last night in the lab, when they extracted the embryo, Sylvia thinks that it has something to do with these creatures, and Kirsch says, not all of them. It's just like one species. So it's just that the alien creatures that is affecting her. Boy Cavalier comes in. I can't stand him. He's like so annoying. He's with Curly, and of course he's rude. He asks Kirsch, he's like, "Don't you have experiments to run?" He's like, "These creatures aren't going to discover themselves." And then he kind of like stares at him for a bit, and he's like, "Of course." So Boy says, he's like, "You too," to Sylvia, but she's like, no, because she says that Wendy is scared and needs her. Boy tells her to be careful because she's not her mother. And he's like, "It's an IT issue, not a gab session." He's like, "And I'm still waiting on your field assessments of the hybrid performance." So Sylvia and Arthur kind of exchange a look, and she tells Wendy that she'll be back. And Wendy seems to want to say something, but she can't. And it's almost like kind of sad seeing Wendy, because it's like she seems like so helpless, but even though she's so like powerful. Boy's like, alone at last. He's like, "Let's bring her hearing online, figure out if it's hardware or software issue." And then Joe comes in with that aide dude. His name is actually Atom, which I just realized. So Boy's like, "Oh, good, it's the brother," and he's like so rude about him. He's like, "The brother." So Joe asks her if she's okay, and Arthur's like, "She can't hear you." And Joe's like, he asks why, and Arthur says that they took her hearing offline, and he's like, "You did what?" And then stupid Boy's like, "Hi, we haven't met. You work for me, or should I say, you work for a subsidiary of a holding company of an LLC of mine." And he's like, "How's the new lung?" So it was a lung that he got. And Joe's like, "It's great, thanks." And Boy's like, "You'll never guess what we did with the old one." And he's like, "What?" And then and Wendy's like, "I can't hear you." And he turns to Wendy, and she's like, "I can't hear. There's a sound in the lab. It hurt my head." It's like, "I can't hear." And then Joe's like, "Okay, what's in the lab?" And he looks at Arthur. Arthur looks at Boy, or maybe the aide. I don't know, Adam, who he looked to. And Joe turns and he's like, "Tell me you didn't bring those things back here." And Boy's like, "We're wasting time. Okay, bring her audio processing online." Arthur starts turning it up and asks, can she hear his voice? And she's like, "Yeah." And it's not up all the way. And he asks if she can hear the noise, and she's like, "No." Arthur adjusts the setting, and she's like, "Okay." And then she's back at full, I guess. So Joe's like, "Hey, Biscuit." I guess he must have called her that. I don't know. And she asks, "Where was he?" He's like, "I had a surgery, but it's okay. I'm fine." Arthur asks her if she can tell him what happened, and she says she woke up and heard it, and they sound like, and she said that like bugs rubbing their legs together. She's like, "So I followed it. It was coming from the lab, and Kirsch was doing things, experimenting on the eggs." And we see like flashbacks of him slicing the egg, pulling out, like really like ripping out the face hunger, like whipping it down. And then she's like, "It was screaming." And Joe's like, "The eggs?" And she's like, "No, the baby. The baby was screaming." And Arthur says that they're gonna have to try to figure out what she hears and why she's hearing it, and then they're gonna make it stop. And Boy and Wendy are both like, "No." And Arthur's like, What do you mean no?" Boy says that she can hear an alien language. He's like, "And you want to turn it off?" Joe's like, "Well, if it's hurting you, we should make it stop." And Wendy says, she's like, "No, I think they picked me. They're talking to me." It's like, "I want to hear them." And Boy's like, he's like, "Deal, let's start the test." And Arthur's like, "Okay, let's start at 20,000 hertz. He starts turning it up, like high-pitched feedback, then there's like chittering. She's like, "I can hear it." And Arthur's like, "Okay, that's on low." It's like, "What if I raise it?" And she's like, "The same." she can still hear it. And he's like, it must be spread across multiple frequency. He's like, I'm going to go to the highest range now. So the chittering volume rises, and then there's like a high-pitched whining. And she's like, stop, 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 stop. She's like, that. She's like, there. So the boy snaps. He's like, Curly, do you hear anything? And Curly, because Curly's like kissing up. She wants to be boy's favorite. So she says, like what? And he's like, a sound that you can't identify. And she's like, maybe. The boy's like, don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me the truth. So she shakes her head. So she's like, come on. She's like lying, saying maybe she hears it. It's like she doesn't. So then Wendy sits up, and he basically like pushes Arthur out of the way. He's like, can you make the sound in a frequency that we can hear? And she's like, how? And he's like, well, how did you hack the data to watch your brother? He's like, don't think of your voice as your voice. Think of it as a speaker. He's like, the sound in your mainframe, so you just, and he's like, he like blows out. He's like, alakazam. So she thinks, she tries. There's like mechanical clicking, like chirping, soft guttural screeching. They're all like watching her. Then boy bangs the table. And the Curly, he's like, sure, you can speak French, but can you do that? So he's mean to her, which is fine because I don't like Curly. But it's like, that's being a jerk to her. Joe's like, enough. And boy's like, oh, the brother's having a feeling? And Joe's like, she needs a rest. And boy's like, she has a lithium-ion battery that could power a small city. She doesn't need to rest. And Joe's like, she's not a machine. She's a child, and she's frightened. Then Wendy's like, I can speak for myself. Arthur says that she needs a break because it's been a rough night. So then boy's like, of course. He's like, take all the time you need, which obviously he's being sarcastic or whatever. And then Joe asks her if she wants to show him her room, and she's like, yeah. So they leave, and then boy like snaps. He dismisses Curly, and there's this assistant tech guy, this other guy, random guy, and then Arthur leaves also. So boy asks Adam, like his dude, he's like, what do you think? And he's like, I think when a hostile alien species decides to speak, one needs to ask why. And boy's like, yeah, unless it's not her they're talking to, it's each other, and she can hear them. And he's like, and now they know that too. It's like, are you sure you wouldn't want to return them to Yutani and get back to the work at hand? And boy's like, so I can wake up one day with a xenomorph in my belly? He's like, no, thank you. He's like, tell the brother he can stay, but he's working for us. And the guy's like, a conflict? And boy's like, no, just a reminder. It's my world. He just lives in it. So it's like, ugh, you suck, boy. Joe, he's like looking at drawings on Wendy's wall, and she says that she's been drawing a lot. And she's like, this is my bed. Well, she's like, it's more like a charging station, but it's kind of like a bed. And he's like, you don't sleep? And she's like, well, no, not really. And then she's like, are you mad at me? And he like chuckles a lot. He's like, why would I be mad at you? And she's like, because I wanted to hear the aliens. She's like, because you had to go to a cemetery for me. And he's like, no. He's like, come on. He's like, I'm not mad at you. He's like, I'm mad at them. And she's like, why? And he's like, because they wouldn't let me see you when you were in the hospital, or Dad. And she's like, so you wanted to come? He's like, of course I wanted to come. And she's like, you couldn't find a way. He's like, if there was a way, I would have found it. But there was a war, and I was on the other side of Earth. And she's like, okay. He's like, I'm here now, though. And she smiles. And then later they're like watching TV side by side, and he kind of puts his arm around her and like sort of like a hug. Is kind of touching. Then boy's like reading Peter Pan over the speaker. It's like, does he read it like every night, the same book? Oh yeah, it's just kind of weird. We see Slightly walking in a hurry. He's thinking of Morrow. Or actually, I guess he's like talking to her, because then he's like, the whole, when is a machine not a machine? And Slightly saying that, they're not friends. Morrow saying, but he wants to be. And he's Slightly like, but friends don't lie. And then they're talking. He's like, you said you were a prodigy. And Morrow's like, well, I didn't know if you were a villain or a hero. And he's like, hero. And Morrow's like, me too. And since we're both heroes, I need your help. Get something and bring it to me, okay? An egg. And Slightly's like, you don't have eggs where you are? And Morrow's like, not that kind of egg. And then Slightly like, a monster egg. And he's like, he says that he can't because that would be stealing. And Morrow's like, how can you steal from a thief? If that egg belongs to me and somebody takes it, how can it be wrong if you take it back? And so it's like, they fixed me here. This is my home. And he's like, and now you're talking about loyalty. That's a very different principle. People do all kinds of terrible things in the name of loyalty. If you wanted to do the moral thing, you can help me get back what you stole. And so he's like, can I talk to someone like Smee or someone? He always knows what to do. And Marl's like, no, that would hurt me. And what do we know about hurting people? Slightly, he's like, it's wrong. He's like, yes, very good. We need to trust each other if we're going to make this work. So I'm going to tell you my name. It's Kumi, but I think he says Quimi Maro. And he's like, remind me your name again? And he's like, Slightly. And Maro's like, no, silly, your real name. And Slightly's like, oh, not supposed to say. And this is like, I can't stand Quimi Maro, because he's like manipulating a child. And he's like, how can I trust you if you won't tell me your name? But it's like, so Slightly doesn't need Maro. Maro needs Slightly, and he's just like totally manipulating him. So then he's like, it's Arush. And he's like, Arush what? He's like, sing. And then Maro, he's like, Arush what? He sings it. So Slightly kind of chuckles. He's like, no, like sing with an H. It's Indian. And Maro has a huge grin on his face because he got him to tell him this. He's like, well then, Arush, sing. Let's figure out how you're going to make things right. Ugh. So then later he walks inside. Kirsch is like waiting for him. And Kirsch says, there's like the thing on the wall. He's like, do you know why there are 3 monkeys on the wall? And Slightly's like, what? So Kirsch is like, Mizaro sees no evil. Kikazaro hears no evil. Iwazu speaks no evil. They're figures in Buddhist teaching about avoiding evil thoughts and deeds, but over the years, they've come to represent something else. And Slightly's like, no. And then Kirsch is like, if I did something evil, would you report me? And he's like, and Kirsch is like, if I hurt or cause others to be hurt, would you do something to stop me, or would you look the other way? And I'm not sure if Maro's listening or not, because then he's like, careful. So then Kirsch's like, everything okay? And he's like, yes, it's just, is this a test? And Kirsch's like, that's what being an adult is, a constant test. So then Slightly, I almost said Arush Slightly, he's like, I would stand up for my friends. And Kirsch's like, good. And Kirsch walks out. Then, oh man, this part. We see like a sheep with electrodes, like in this little like kind of glass cage. There's like a hatch opens, and that squid eyeball thing crawls out, plops on the floor, crawls towards the sheep, and then it's kind of sad because it tries like backing away. It freaks out. The thing jumps on its face. There's a violent reaction, and then there's like there's starting to be blood. It finally digs its way into the eye socket, pops out the original eye. And then it takes its place. So now it's like in the sheep's head, like this big eye kind of sticking out. And then a boy and the A dude, Adam and Kirsch watch it. So it's like lying on the floor. Then it starts to get up, and then it stands on its hind legs. It's like, oh, that's like so freaky. So then it discards the old eye. And Kirsch is like, fascinating. And then Toodles says that the wavy lines are definitely different because he's looking at like Kirsch like, those are gamma waves. And he's like, problem solving concentration. He's like, see how they've increased? He's like, this creature is highly intelligent. Look how it's watching us. So Kirsch like steps closer to the containment unit glass, kind of moves like back and forth, and it stays locked on him. It's like it's very freaky, very intimidating. You know, it's just a sheep with this bug eye. Adam says to the boy, he's like, if one of those ever escapes. And then stupid boy's like, glass half full, kid. And then, I don't know why he calls him a kid. So then he bounces the ball against the glass. I feel like when people bounce balls and that, I feel like it's supposed to be like, oh, you're so cool, you're so smart, you're bouncing, you got whatever. He bounces the ball, and the sheep slowly turns to look at him. And then he like squats and points to himself. He's like, me. And he's like, staring down, whatever. It's like, you're a crazy boy. You're messing with stuff you should not be messing with. Sylvia kind of like chases after Arthur. They're walking, and she's like, where are you taking me? She's like, I don't understand why we need to leave the lab. He's like, are you serious? And she's like, darling, can you please just explain what's going on? And he's like, so they go outside. He's like, what are we doing here? Sure isn't science. He's like, we're halfway through beta testing the hybrids, and he brings in who knows how many alien species. And she's like, it's a multi-world corporation. I think we can do 2 things at once. And then Arthur's like, but she's not ready, Wendy. I mean, or any of them. I mean, this morning proves that. The data isn't there. We mapped out the steps to, control groups, system checks. He sends them to a crash site and to combat. And she's like, yes, he breaks rules. He takes risks. Maybe that's why he's so far ahead. And Arthur's like, yeah, but that's not science. He's like, I don't care how rich you get. Like, something is or it isn't. So she says something about like quantum physics, and he talks about the hybrids. They do it wrong. That they could have a bunch of AI that thinks that they're kids, or worst case, they've killed 6 kids. So they need to be careful with what they're doing. And she says that that's not something that they're flippant about ever. And he says that he hears her, but he's worried, and he needs her to hear that. Not as a scientist, but as her husband. And she says that she does, and he's like, okay. He's like, we have to stick to the protocols, reevaluate the risks. They need to think about what's going to happen if the whole thing goes to hell. And she says that she's like, well, I'll make dinner tonight. We can talk this through. Then Nibs strolls up. She's like, I have good news. So Nibs is the one that the eye thing almost attacked, and she like blocked it. So she's like, I have such good news. She's like, I'm pregnant. And Sylvie's like, what? And she's like, I'm going to have a baby. And Arthur's like, that's impossible. You're a machine. She's like, I'm not a machine. She's like, why would you say that? And Sylvie's like, no, of course not, baby. He didn't mean that. You're just too young to have a child. And she's like, well, it's true. I woke up this morning and I just knew. It's not all those horrible things that he was saying about me, what's inside me, controlling me, metal and silicone. It's a baby. And she's like, wow, that's big news. And she's like, why don't we go to my office and we can talk? So she's like, how have you been feeling? And she's like, pretty tired. This being pregnant thing is hard work. So in her office, Sylvia says that they haven't talked in a while, and now she has this feeling, and she says it's not a feeling. She's going to have a baby. Sylvia says that that's amazing. Does she know how babies are made? And Nib says that God brings them. And Sylvia's like, yeah, on some level, but there's also a process, a physical process between a man and a woman, a biological process. And Nib says that, she knows all about that. She grew up on a farm. And Sylvia goes on about, then she must know about a man and a woman's, their bodies fit together, fertilization, that embryo grows into a baby. And Nib's like, well, except for Jesus, his mommy didn't do that, and he was born. And then Sylvia's like, you know what I'm starting to realize? That we didn't, in all this business of trying to make sure everything went right with your transition, all of you, we never really talked about your bodies, how they work, how they're different. And Nibs is just like sitting there. She's got like this, some stuffed critter, like, and she's just like humming. And Sylvia's like, it's different, right? Your new body? And Nibs is like, it's big. And Sylvia's like, it is, but it's not just the size. I'm talking about what's on the inside. She's like, let me show you a diagram. And she's like, I don't want to look at that. So Sylvia comes over with the diagram. She's like, here. And then Nibs like swings her leg down. She lifts her legs up, swings it down. And she like knocks the book out of her hand hard. And she's like, I said no. And Sylvia's like, okay. And then she just kind of sits. And then Nibs is like, it's a girl. I think Clarissa. And she's like, Nibs? And she's like, that's her name. What she wants to be called. Sylvia's like, what happened at the towers? And Nibs thinks about the cat. She thinks about the cat with the eyeball, squid thing, whatever. She's like, I don't want to talk about that. And Sylvia's like, Curly said that you were really brave. And there's flashes like her, like, blocking the squid thing with her hands. And then she's like, I said I don't want to talk about that. Sylvia's like, those creatures can't hurt you. You know that, right? They're all locked up. And she leaps up, and she's like, stop talking. And she like goes across the room, like she's right in Sylvia's like face with her hands on her shoulders, like looking down at her. And Sylvia's like, all right, sweetheart. She's like, I'm sorry. Do you want to have some tea? I'm thinking of having a cup of tea. So then Nibs like, let's go, and sits back down. And I'm like, man, it is time to deactivate her ass. It's like, this is crazy. This is dangerous. So she walks over and she mentions like new flavors they got, but she pushes this button under the counter. And her hands are like shaking as she tries to get like a flavor strip thing ready. And Nib's like, if it's a boy, what do you think about Trevor? And Sylvia's like, that's a good name, Strong. 2 like guards come in, and she says that, oh, I just remembered I meant to be meeting with Mr. Cavalier. And she's like, these gentlemen will help you back to your room, okay? Nib asks it, she's like, if she can keep like the stuffed bird thing, whatever she's been petting. And so it was like, of course. She's like, we'll talk again soon, okay? She's like, I've missed our talks. And she's like, okay. So she walks out and she tells the guard, she's like, get her back to her room, secure the door, tell your supervisor we have a level 3 event. He'll know what to do. Joe is brought to talk to Atom. Adam says that he thought they'd talk about his future with the company, and Joe asks if his unit, especially the two that he was with, if they're okay. Adam's like, that information is confidential. To be completely frank, so is information about Wendy. And Joe's like, Marcy. My sister's name is Marcy. And Adam's like, so you believe she's your sister? And Joe's like, she has her memories, her sense of humor. Doesn't that make her Marcy? And Adam's like, actually, that's something we'd like to know too, from you. We'd like confirmation from someone who knew her well that the transition was a success. And he's like, she thinks she's my sister. And Adam's like, what do you think? And Joe's like, I think this conversation's over. And Adam's like, it's a condition of your employment that you answer all the questions put to you by a superior. And Joe's like, well then, I quit. So Adam's like, of course, as this is a private island, we'll have to get you on the first shuttle back home. Confidentially, you understand. I should tell you that if you are no longer employed by us, then all contact with the unit you call your sister will be terminated. And he's like, no. And Adam's like, also, as your body keeps reminding you, you have a new lung. Whilst it comes courtesy of the Prodigy Corporation, it isn't free. You could work off the price here, assessing Wendy, redeploy, and pay it off with a lifetime contract, or simply go home and we'll bill you. And he looks at the model like this body organ, and Joe's like, did you really download my sister's consciousness into that body? Is it her? And Adam's like, those are two different questions. One is practical, and the other, well, that's a real existential crux. And I should add the difference between $1 trillion business and a blanket with sleeves. And Joe's like, a what? He's like, an invention that no one wanted. So are you still an employee of the Prodigy Corporation, or shall I have security remove you from the island? He's like, no, I'm your man. He's like, excellent. He's like, and when can I take her home? So then Adam's like, let me be clear about something, Prodigy Medic Hermit, because that's his last name. The unit you call your sister is a property of the Prodigy Corporation. She is a prototype for a transhumanist product which, once refined, will create human immortality. That makes her the next evolutionary step between our animal past and our transhuman's future. There is no universe in which you get to take her home. Are we clear? And he's like, she's still a human being. And Adam's like, no, she's not. Not anymore. So he leaves the office. Then he sees his two squad mates. He's like, oh, you work here now? And they're like, yeah, the whole squad is, or what's left of it. And then Boy's like watching him like a creep, like on a monitor. Wendy goes to meet with Sylvia. Boy is like lying on a sofa, like throwing his ball up. And she's like, oh, I was supposed to meet Sylvia. And then he's like, pirates or Indians? He's like, when you fought the aliens, was it more like fighting pirates or Indians? Then he's like, no, the crocodile. It's like, you fought the crocodile, and now you hear the clock. And she's like, it was hurting Joe. And he's like, oh, right, the brother. She's like, what do you think they're saying? The aliens. And she's like, you shouldn't have cut them open. And he's like, they said that? And she's like, no, I know how would you feel if they cut you open? And he's like, or stuck to my face and drank my blood, or popped out my eyeball and burrowed into my brain. I mean, they would if they could, So why not just cut them open? It's like, should we let him stay, you think, the brother? Give him access to all this, you? And she's like, please, he's nice. And Boy's like, he's nice if you like brothers, which I don't, or fathers, or mothers. Ugh. He's like, always telling us what to do. Why would you think she wanted them? Utani? The aliens? And when he's like, I think we should send them back. He's like, because they hurt you? And she's like, because it's wrong keeping them. And Boy's like, no, I'll tell you who we should send back, your brother. And she's like, please don't. And Boy's like, well, none of the others get to have brothers. I mean, what makes you so special? And she's like, I'm not special. She's like, please. He's like, oh, come on. What kind of intellectual argument is please? It's like, no, I'm sorry. We should send him back on the next plane. I mean, if you think about it, he didn't even come visit you when you were sick. She's like, Joe was working. He was far away. He already explained it that they wouldn't let him, and he couldn't. And then in a mimic voice, he's like, oh my God, it's too far away. It's too hard. And then back to his regular voice, he's like, all I know that if I was your brother, I'd find a way to be there. I'll tell you what, you help me figure out what the aliens are saying. I'll let you keep him, okay? And again, so he's manipulating her too. It's like everyone sucks. Boy sucks, Morrow sucks. He's like, but the minute he becomes a distraction, and she's like, he won't. She's like, I promise. And she holds up her hand, and she's like, pinky promise. And he's like, okay. But then he's like, does he not know how to do a pinky promise? Because he just like puts his hand around her pinky, and not like wrapping his pinky around it. And then he's like, okay, away with you. He's such a rude piece of crap. So the sheep is still in the cage. They're monitoring the specimen. Toodle tells Kirsch that he wants to change his name. And he's like, you want to talk about this now? And Toodle's like, I'm a grown man, a scientist. I want a real name. And Kirsch is like, our leader gave you that name. And he's like, I know, but that's like a code name, like, or sport or chief. It's not what you call a man, a serious man. And Kirsch is like, what would you like to be called? And he's like, well, I was thinking about scientists, famous thinkers, and I was thinking Isaac. And Kirsch is like, yes, I think that's right. So, because he starts to say, like, Isaac, and he's like, yes, I know. So I guess you're going to call him Isaac now. Slightly is out in the hall. Toodles, Isaac, comes out. He says that Kirsch has him doing proper science now and that he's got a new name, Isaac, after old-time scientist. Slightly asks, like, where'd you get that? And he says that he gave it to himself. And Slightly's like, we can do that now? Isaac, Toodles, he's like, well, don't know about can, but I did. Kirsch said it was okay. And then Slightly's like, I'm helping him too. Arthur said that he needed something from the lab. And Isaac's like, oh, cool, what? And Slightly's like, huh? So Isaac's like, what does Arthur need? And he's like, oh, it was, and then Isaac's like, okay, we're going to go play a game. Come, maybe you'll remember. And Slightly's like, I'm going to go take a walk, which he goes the other way. Kirsch is still in the lab, and I don't know if he's I think he's listening to Slightly. So he's calling out tomorrow. He said that he checked it out. It's just no way. This seems like very dangerous if Kirsch is like letting all this happen. He's like, there's no way. Morrow says that he's a very clever boy, so he'll figure it out. Slightly says he's like, he can't do it. And Morrow's like, can't or won't. So he's like, I'm sorry. And Morrow says, sorry won't cut it. He's like, it's funny you called. I was just talking about you with your mother. And he's sitting like with her, and she almost looks a little concerned. And Slightly's like, and Morrow's like, she thought you were dead. Isn't that awful? And he's like, Mummy. And he's like, oh, she can't hear you. This is our private line. You know what she told me? Your brothers will be home soon. I can't wait to meet them. And it's like, no, please. And he's like, oh, now it's please? Arush, I really wanted us to be friends. And he's like, but we are, right? We are friends. Morrow's like, I hope so, but friends help each other, right? And like he just continues all this. And he's like, I'll help. And Morrow's like, that's great. He's like, but I don't know how. Like there's just one of me, and there's like so many guards, and they have guns. And then he's like, okay, I'll tell you what you're going to do. Instead of sneaking out an egg, you're going to sneak in a person. And again, it's like, is Kirsch listening? And I don't know, can he only hear Slightly, not Morrow? Can he hear both? So he's like, you're going to sneak someone into the lab. Anyone you like. Take them to see the eggs. Get them good and close. And Slightly's like, why? And Morrow's like, well, the egg is going to hatch and something's going to come out. He's like, don't worry, it doesn't want you. Something's going to come out and attach itself to the person's face. He or she is going to fall down, and you'll need to find someplace quiet to keep them. Not long, just a day or two. And the thing on a person's face is going to fall off, and they're going to wake up. He's like, and then that's when I bring them to you? Exactly. But you'll have to be quick, okay? And we're hearing like Morrow's audio when they show like Kirsch. Again, he seems like he's listening. He's like, okay, but how do I? And he's like, I'll be close. You call me and I'll meet you. And it's like, what happens to the person I choose? And Morrow's like, well, they'll have a bad couple of days for sure, but I'll make sure they're comfortable. Understand? He's like, no, I don't. How do I choose? And he's like, well, looks like your mom wants to say something. And she's like, Arush? He's like, Mommy, we love you, but every day your brothers and me talk about you. And Morrow's like, isn't that sweet? I've got to go, and you know what to do. Let's say you have 24 hours to choose, this time tomorrow. And remember how we talked about how you do anything you had to protect your parents. This is that. Are we clear? Yes, we are clear. Okay, great. You're doing great. Now go get him. Kirsch goes into the egg room. He touches like the slime of one. And it's like, I don't know. Smee and Wendy are getting Joe to like try like I think flavor strips or something like that. And he says the one that they gave him, he's like, tastes like motor oil. Isaac says doesn't really have a flavor. It triggers a synthetic memory of a flavor. Curly calls him a smarty pants, and he says, well, I've been reading a lot. And he explains to Smee that it's like a library, but you upload the book into your memory. Then Curly asks Joe, what is the 5 that their boss keeps talking about? So he explains the old planet had something called governments, where people used to, they would vote for who they wanted making decisions. That didn't work. So these 5 corporations, they rose up, and apparently they fixed the problems, and now they work together to run things. So Isaac says Prodigy, Wayland, Yutani, and Joe's like Threshold, Dynamic, Lynch. And then he mentions like the crashed ship. It was Yutani's. They took it, and they're mad. So they're probably asking the 5 to step in and get their stuff back. Wendy's like, they're creatures. And Joe's like, yeah. Isaac says they've learned so much from them already. And Curly says that, well, if you love them so much, why don't you marry them? And they laugh. Then Slightly walks up, and they say that they're having ice cream and talking. Slightly asks, how come he's here? And he looks at Joe. Wendy's like, he's my brother. And it's like, well, I got brothers too. Like, we've all got brothers and mothers, and they're not here. She's like, he shouldn't be here either. And she's like, hey, you're being rude. And he's like, you're not the boss of us. And she's like, I'm the oldest. And then he's like, no, Curly, what? Is like 12? And Isaac too? And Joe's like, I agree, your family should be here, all of them. Instead of having funerals, they should have had parties. You were dying, and now look at all you. Smee says that they should ask, and Slightly's like, no, demand. Curly says that they might get mad and then send them away. Isaac says that they made them, and Wendy says that she's going to go. She's like, the boy genius said to go to the lab. Joe says that she doesn't have to, but she says that she wants to. And Slightly's like staring at Joe. So he's probably thinking, oh, I can get Joe in there to get the eggs, which would be really bad. Wendy's again in front of Joe's lung, and she's making alien noises. Joe looks at the scar on his side and his chest. Slightly's outside staring into the window. Wendy's humming now in front of the new lung. Kirsch is outside the lab. The lung is pulsing, and then something kind of pushes at the surface, and then there's kind of blood or pinkish liquid seeps out. Kirsch is watching. There's more blood pool in the liquid stuff. Then Wendy bends close, and the alien smashes through the glass, and it's like a kind of like a big eel thing now, whatever. And there's this face-off between Wendy. She chitters or whatever. It kind of moves about it wants to strike at her, but it's cautious. And she reaches her hand out to touch his head, and she kind of pets it, and it kind of smiles, but it still seems a little nervous. But it's accepting her touch. So it's kind of freaky. It's what is going on here? But yeah, that's the end of that episode. I don't like all this alien stuff. They're playing with fire. It's insane. And yeah, I don't know what's I feel like Slightly is going to mess everything up. I mean, this is going to be really bad. All right, Peacemaker, Season 2, Episode 2, A Man is Only as Good as His Bird. So it cuts back to 8 months ago. Economos shows Rick Flag around the office at Argus. And and he's like, oh, down there is a bathroom, and this is a break room. There's the TV's on. There's news or whatever like that. Economos points out that Rick is on TV because he's him getting sworn in as the new acting director of Argus. Flag says that he knows that Waller's all about self-promotion, but that's not his bag. Economos is going on about stuff, and then Rick asks, he's like, "Are you kissing up to me?" And Economos is like, "Yeah, a little bit." Rick's like, "Well, it's not going to work." So he reaches office. Economos is like, well, if you need anything else. And then he's like, actually, yes. I'd like to see a full report of my son's death. I tried to get the files immediately after it occurred, but they said it was classified. As acting director of Argus, I'd like to take a look at them now. Economos just kind of stares at him. And he's like, is there a problem with that, son? And he's like, no, it's just, I didn't want it to be upsetting. And he's like, upsetting. He's like, I think I can handle it, Economos. He's like, of course you can. It's just that that day was complicated, and any actions taken were under the order of Waller, and most of us didn't even know. He's like, get me the fudging files, John. And he's like, yes, sir. Later, he has the files in front of him. He finally opens it, sees a photo of his son, of Rick Flag Jr., and then we see a flashback to, I guess it's the Suicide Squad. I think it's the same footage. Rick Flag Jr. gets a hard drive of the files or whatever. Peacemaker pulls his gun on him, saying that if that information gets out, it'll cause an international incident. And he's like, keeping the peace is worth any price, including the life of a hero like yours, sir. And then there's scenes of them fighting, and then when Peacemaker shoves a shard into his heart, whatever, and in his final words, Peacemaker, what a joke. But it's like weird that like this stuff is in the file. Like even that what he said. How did they get these details? Did like Peacemaker give an in-depth report? Because I don't know if anyone else was listening or watching. I don't know. I don't remember. So then Rick Flag Sr., he's like, oh, it's like hits him hard because, you know, he's getting all these details, and maybe I guess he didn't know about this, you know, like how he died, that it was Peacemaker or whatever. And he hits his desk a few times. And he comes out of office. He goes up to Agent Bordeaux, and he tells her that he wants a surveillance unit on Christopher Smith 24/7 immediately. And she's like, the Peacemaker is in our agency's grace because of his work in Project Butterfly. He's like, fudge the Peacemaker. And he like walks away. And then, so I watched the intro, so we get the intro at this point, and I feel like I'm missing something because I still don't love the opening. And I don't know, I feel like it's a little emotionless. And, you know, like I said last week, I think that's maybe the point. But I don't know, like the dance moves don't really like, they're not as impressive as they were last time. And I don't know, it's just like, what are they doing? It's like, I don't know. Then we see bloody Peacemaker, bloody Chris looking around. So after he fought his other version of himself, he drops the dead other, you know, he's kind of got him in his arm. He like drops him. He empties the bottom of a shelf, like where the helmets were or whatever. He crams the body inside the bottom, but the body keeps like rolling out after like several attempts. So he goes back to his world. He calls someone about a bone. He's like, do you still have those bone saw or something like that? Then he goes in the shower. There's like a ton of blood and everything. He's like crying in the shower, everything. Then we see Adebayo. She goes to her old apartment, I guess. There's like these two little dogs, you know, that she's missed and everything like that. Then her ex comes home, and she's like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I was just going to Chris's, and I thought, you know, I'd stop by to get like some hair stuff or whatever. Her ex is like, you can't just drop by unannounced. And Adebayo, she's like, well, I thought you were at work. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter. She's like, and you know, then she tries making small talk. You know, she talks about her uniform and everything because she's working at a fast food restaurant, I guess. And her ex she's mad that Adebayo like changed every single aspect of the relationship overnight without asking. And she's like, we were supposed to be going back to Gotham, and now what? You're staying here to start a spy business? And Adebayo's like, well, people need to follow their dreams. It's like, you even said that. And she's like, yeah, but not when the dreams are leeching off of somebody else's reality. So Adebayo's like, I'm going to go. And she's like, this is going to end stupid. And the ex is like, it started stupid when you broke into my apartment. So Adebayo's like frustrated, but then she's like, you know, she's at the door and she's like, love you. And the ex, you know, she has her back to her, like at the sink. And she just like stops what she's doing, but she doesn't say anything. And then Adebayo leaves. Hardcore's like at a drugstore. She like stops, she takes off her sunglasses, looks in his mirror, big bruises on her face. Then this lady comes up to her. She's like, hi. She's like, I couldn't help but notice you when, you know, where I was standing. And she's like, I don't mean to intrude, but I know what you're going through. You're going through something difficult. If you're with someone who's hurting you, I have resources that could help. And because Hardcore's like a major jerk, she just says dryly, she's like, okay, thanks. And then the lady continues about how they get trapped in a cycle, and you know, they think what's happening to them is okay, and you know, she just wants to tell her that it's not. And Hardcore's like, I appreciate it. That's not what this is. But then the lady continues, and she's like, you know, often women deny what's happening. She's like, I'm not a fudging mirror. And the lady's like, what? She's like, I have my own problems, okay? All right? Is that okay with you? And she's like, sorry. And she like walks out. And Hardcore sighs, like turns around. Everyone's kind of like staring at her. And there's this guy, and she's like, you got a good view there, Beaker? And he's like, Beaker? Who's? And some random lady, like other, you know, on the other aisle, she's like, he's a Muppet. And the guy's like, do I look like him? And she's like, a little. And he's like, that's bad? And the lady's like, it's not good. So we get like all this like random conversations, and I feel like it's starting to get to be a bit much, but Hardcore gets some like chips and dips. She's about to walk out, and she sees a sign for like a cashier position, and she like closes her eyes, like because she needs a job, but she walks out. So maybe she'll come back. I don't know. Economos is still sitting in the van outside Chris's. Someone starts to come in, and he grabs his gun. It's Tim Meadows. I wasn't expecting to see him. He says his name is Fleury. Fleury. He says Bordeaux sent him. Economos like, let me see your badge. And he's like, reach slowly. And he's like, I don't need to do poop slowly, Kimosabi. He's like, you can't discharge that firearm while it's still in the holster, but I will do it slowly because I'm polite. I love Tim Meadows. He's funny. So Economos says that he should get a call if someone's coming. Fleury says that Bordeaux thought that he might need some backup. And he's like, what's your preferred form of greeting? He's like, handshake, fist bump, hug. He's like, are you a hugger, Economos? He's like, no, I'm not a hugger. He's like, so then what'll it be? And he's like, what'll what be? What form of greeting? And he's like, I don't know, maybe just a nod, like, and he nods. He's like, yeah. He's like, that's cool. That's real cool. We got a cool guy in the van, Ginger Cool. He's like, you mind if I call you that, Ginger Cool? And he's like, yeah, I really do. A fudging mind. And he's like, then he like helps himself to whatever, Economos is eating. Just takes a bite. Peacemaker has some coffee. He gets a newspaper, sees a bunch of naked people in the living room, and then Adebayo knocks on the door. In the van, Fleury's like, who's the fox? Because they see a camera of Adebayo like at the door. Economos like, oh, that's just a friend of ours. And Fleury's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I just accidentally sexualize someone that you respect as a friend, Economos? He's like, it's fine, whatever. And it's weird that they got you monitoring your own crew. They do that, Make sure your loyalty is first and foremost to the A. He's like, Argus. And Economos is like, just like cursing. He's like, because he's so ridiculous. And he's like, you having a crisis of conscience here, Economos? He's like, no. He's like, is that why Bordeaux sent me to babysit you? He's like, I don't know. I'm doing my job like I do every day, okay? I don't give a poop. He's like, of course not. You're Ginger Cool. He's like, are you fudging kidding me? Chris steps out on the front porch, and she's like, what, you won't let me in? He's like, it's kind of messy in there. Eagly comes out, and she's like, hey, Eagly. And he like snaps at her, and he's like, he likes you. And she's like, I'm not so sure. Fleury's like, what's the deal with the parrot? As it flies off. And Economos like, that's an eagle. And he's like, He's like, it's a bald eagle. It's a symbol of America. Are you telling me you don't recognize what kind of bird that is? And Fleury's like, okay, you obviously have not read my dossier. Which, how could he? Because he didn't even know he existed before. He's like, I have bird blindness. And Economos like scoffs. He's like, bird blindness? He's like, I can't tell the difference between one type of bird and another. And he's like, okay, but a duck and an eagle are totally different sizes? He's like, yeah, well, they look the same size to me, man. And he's like, what about like a hummingbird? And Fleury's like, tiny bird, incredibly fast wing, hovers. And Economos like, yeah, see? But Fleury's like, yeah, I only know about that because I read it. It's like, to me, they look and move just like any other bird. He's like, it's my sole weakness. Adebayo is showing Peacemaker the photo on her phone. Economos like, he's like, what's she showing him? He knows, he's like, it could be anything. Chris tells her it's like a quantum unfolding chamber. And she's like, well, what? He's like, it's a dimensional portal that leads to 99 other universes, in his dad's bedroom. She's like, well, it's yours now. He's like, yeah, fudging mine now, whatever. I don't use it much. I let Eagly fly around in there sometimes when it's too cold outside. She's like, you never told me about it. He's like, never thought about it. Ads, like, geez, it's not that big of a deal. She's like, get the fudge out, it's not. He's like, I grew up with it. It's normal to me. It's like you being a fudging Christian Scientist or whatever. She's like, I'm not a Christian Science. He's like, well, what are you then? She's like, well, I don't practice much, but I'm a Methodist. So, and then it's just like, oh boy, it's like more small talk, like casual conversations. And it's just like, I don't know if this is, it's almost like, like Kevin Smith style, like just have people talking and it's like witty conversations, I don't know. But he says like, being a Methodist is normal to her, but it's like Martian stuff to him. And she's like, you can't compare being a Methodist to having a portal in your bedroom. And he's like, fine. He's like, I see your point. He's like, congratulations, you're the winner of the conversation. And he goes on, he's like, oh, you get a war. There should be a big dance routine and blah. It's just like, oh my gosh. And she's like, are you having a breakdown right now? He's like, I don't know. And she asks, what's going on with him. He said he had a rough night. And she says that, she doesn't want to make it worse, but he's being monitored right now. He's like, by who? And she's like, Rick Flag, Sr. He's the head of Argus now. And he's like, does he know that and she's like, killed his son? And she's like, yeah. So he's like, fudge me. He's like, how do you know all this? And she's like, a friend inside? And he's like, I'm just going to pretend like I don't know who that is. And she's like, you want my advice? He's like, I don't know. She's like, number one, this portal, don't use it, because somehow they always know when you do. Number two, give it to them. He's like, well, it's mine. She's like, they're going to treat you like you're hiding a nuclear weapon in your house, Chris. Just tell them that you don't know exactly what it is. It's your dad's or whatever. Because if you don't, they're going to use it as an excuse to send you back to prison. And then Vigilante comes up with like a cleaning caddy and like a bag over his shoulder. He's like, hey guys, in the van, Flurry's like, who's the nerd? And kind of was like, that's Adrian Chase. He's just a friend. He's like, psh, that mother trucker looks like he caught all the Pokemon. And he's like, you know what I'm saying? And it kind of was like, no, I don't. He's like, super nerd. And then he's like, Pokemon, it's plural, not Pokemon. And Flurry's like, well, I'm sorry. And this is part, it's like, oh my gosh, you know where this is going. He's like, well, I'm sorry. He's like, Pokemon's grammar is not my bag, man. He's like, when you were learning about that, you can guess what he was doing, right? I feel like they use the same thing, I think, when they were talking about, someone was talking about Lord of the Rings or whatever. But it's just such edgy dialogue. So Adebayo's taken off, and she says, I'll see you tonight. So, it's John's Economos welcome home party. Inside, Adrian's like, what's all this? Because, you see the people. Chris is like, oh, I just had some people over. He says that, he's fudged up, and Adrian starts getting fussy. He's like, oh, now you call me because, you're messed up, but not when you have a party, and like blah, 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 all this stuff like that. They go in the bedroom, and Chris stands at the door, and Adrian asks if he's going in, and Chris says that he's being monitored, and they're going to know, and then he's like, oh, fudge it. In the van, the radar picks up the door, whatever. Economos curses. Flurry's like surprised, and he gets a call. He's like, yeah, me and Ginger Cool are on this poop. He's like, yeah, hang on. And he's like, Bordeaux wants to know if you're going to that thing tonight, that thing with Smith. And he's like, yeah, I know what she means. Yes, why? And then Flurry's on the phone. He's like, yeah, he'll be there with bells on. And here we go again. She's like, he said he'll be there with bells on? And Flurry's like, well, I added the bells part. It sounded more poetic. I was like, oh, brother. And she's like, well, don't do that, whatever. So she says that Flag thinks that they should keep Economos in the cold on this. After he and Smith leave, she's sending him, Flurry, and a team of agents to do a full scrub of Smith's home. So he gets off the phone. He tells Economos that she said to hold, do nothing. And then he just sits and like kind of stares at him. Chris I guess he told off camera, he told Adrian that he killed his own doppelganger, from another dimension where everything's better. And he's like, that's so sick. Adrian, he says that he'd love to meet himself. And Chris is like, you don't want to meet yourself. It's like looking yourself in the eyes will mess you up. So then they get to the body because they're like in the other portal room area. So he says they need to get rid of it, but he doesn't want his otherworld dad and brother finding it. So they drag the body. It just like leaves this big blood smear. They put him on a table. Chris starts like sawing. Adrian's smiling. He's like chopping into pieces. Adrian mops the floor, and then a phone falls out of the body's pocket. So Chris takes it. Then they put the body into that like fire thing. The alien next door comes out with like a dead critter again because that's what we saw last episode where he's like burning something. And Chris yells and he's like, fudge off. And Adrian smiles like, who's that guy? And Chris is like, that's just some rude mother trucker who I say hi to every time, and he never says hi back. So then later, Chris checks out the phone. He's looking at like photos. He sees a folder with just like hardcore, like lots of them together, a video of her like laughing while she's eating. It's like some selfies of them in bed, like nothing like bad, just them lying there, it's like smiling. And then he like looks at the door. So then we see like a bunch of mercenaries are all getting stuff ready. So it's a team that's going to go in with Flurry. Chris leaves. One guy wants to go in, but Flurry's like, no, we should wait in case he forgot something. He's like, he's going to party. He might have forgotten a gift or a housewarming present. Then it turns into conversation about the purpose of housewarming gifts. That he's like, well, they're not moving in, and he's like, well, when I go, it's a gift that warms a house. Blah blah blah. It's like that. So they wait. Hardcore is getting ready. She covers up her bruises. Economos rings her doorbell, and then she asks him to text the others to meet them on the roof. So they go up. Economos says that he's surprised because she doesn't seem like the type to play house. I think Hardcore said Adebayo lives in a snake pit. Adrian lives with his mother, who might be a rotting Norma Bates Styles for all she knows. And every time she goes to Chris's, eagerly, literally tries to kill her. So then Adrian arrives with beer, and she's like, how'd you get up here? He's like, I took the fire escape. She's like, don't climb my fire escape. He's got like 2 cases of like Bud Light. Then John and Adebayo arrive, and Adrian's like, did you two come together? And he's like, no, we met on the stairs, because he's like jealous. So then they have a toast to the 11th Street kids, and Chris says that no one will break them apart. So Fleury and the squad get ready to go in. He gives them the questionable names, like he calls one Encino Man. He calls one, what was he? I forget what he called him, but and they like one guy hated it because he called him like some young whatever. So he says scan for anomalies. One dude, as they go in there looking around, one dude picks up like energy seeping out of the door, and with the scanner, then eagerly attacks when he reaches for the doorknob. So they start shooting. It's like you're leaving bullet holes all. It's like it's gonna be obvious you were there. I guess they don't care about that. But he can't shoot the bird because Fleury can't see how big it is because it's like attacking guy. He can't do anything about it. Then this other tries coming in. He gets attacked. Someone gets their eyeball plucked out. There's this lady. She gets like her throat slashed by his beak. Eagerly swoops up and then dive bombs like Fleury. And then there's like some song montage. Eagerly like struts inside, and it cuts to like the others partying on the roof. Chris talks to Hardcore. Conversation really doesn't go deep. It's like you think they're going to talk, but then we see Adrian's talking with them. Economos and Adebayo are talking. They catch up on like what's been going on. Then he finally says how the job is stressful, and she's like, "Well, quit. Go your own path." But then at Peacemaker's, one of the guys wakes up, Fleury, and he says that they have to get the others to the hospital. And Fleury's like, a duck attacked me, or something like that. Chris and Hardcore talk again. Now they're going to have their conversation. So he asks what happened, because there's a cut on her head. And she's like, oh, it was nothing. It was just a thing at a bar. And he's like, again? Because he says that he was there one time, I guess. And he's like, that place is not filled with good people. It's a good place to go looking for a fight. And then she asks if he thinks that she goes around looking for fights, and she's like, well, you dress and beat the poop out of people. So it's like, what is he who is he to say anything? And he says that she's been upset ever since Task Force X disbanded, and he's worried about her. And she questions, she's like, well, we both know that's what you'd like. And he's like, what? She's like, yeah, you'd like me to be some sort of damaged, broken bird, because water seeks its own level and all that. I'm not really sure what that means. And she's like, sorry, I'm not as fudged up as you, Chris. And he's like, I never said you were. And she's like, all right. She's like, fudge this. And she like walks towards the others. So Adrian's down to his like whitey tidies, and they're like, it kind of was like pouring beer on him, which is like, whatever. And Chris starts like drinking more quickly. And then he stumbles home. He's back home later. He's like drunk, stumbling around. He trips over like a big mess because the place is trash from the mercenary guys or the squad team. He thinks that Eagly just trashed the place. Eagly comes up to him and he like kind of pets him and tries giving him a noogie, and Eagly doesn't like that and kind of leaves. So he's about to hit a bong on his nightstand, but then he picks up the other guy's phone, the other Peacemaker phone. He looks at the contacts and he stares at like Hardcore's images. He goes like to Dexter and he's like, hey, but then it says not delivered, obviously because he's in another dimension, so it doesn't work. He looks at the door, then he opens it, goes through. And it's like, wait, did he leave it open? Does it close automatically? I don't get, because like the number panel thing, how does that close? Because if someone else comes in, are you going to see it? So he stumbles around. He goes to the other door. He's still stumbling. Then he hears his dad talking to someone. I think they're talking about him because I think he says something like, no one knows where he is. And then he looks at the phone. His text went through because then other Hardcore, it's like, hey, and then there's like typing, like, and then like nothing, but then a broken heart emoji. And he like sits and stares at the screen. And then there's an end credit scene. I don't know if there's an end credit for the first episode because I think it just like skipped automatically, or maybe I did. I don't know. But it's a scene where Fleury and economists are talking about the Pokemon lingo, and then it's kind of like an extended version, like when Fleury talks about like what he was doing while he was learning about Pokemon and stuff. So like, okay, whatever. So it's good, but sometimes I feel like it's just too much witty conversation, stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, you're a funny writer, but it just gets to be too much. I don't know, but it's fine. So that was episode 2 of Peacemaker. Okay, now the movie feature is The Conjuring Last Rites. The final movie. Rotten Tomatoes, let's just start with that. Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it, the critics score is at a 55%. Audience, popcorn meter, 79%. So the audience likes it a little more, which tends to often happen. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it, because, you know, sometimes I feel like this is a problem, and I know I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's been a while, but when you have to do a review, it kind of takes the fun out of it. And, you know, because you got to I just feel like sometimes it just gets too technical. It's like no one cares about all this specific stuff. I mean, it depends on who you're writing the review for. Okay, like, who is your audience? You know, do they really care about all this? I think most people just want to know, what did you think? Like when I would just check like IGN reviews or every once in a while, I haven't like in the longest time. Yeah, I would just go to the bottom thing where they put like the good and the bad. It's like, what is the letter grade? Because I think, do they do letter grades? I think they do letter grades or did letter grades. But then, you know, I think they would have like a pros and a con or a good and a bad or something like that. It's like, that's all I want. Give me bullet points. And I don't want to read this whole thing. I don't need to know how the symbolism of this or juxtaposition or this and that or whatever. And it's like, but whatever. If some people like it, some people want that. I'm just not one of those people. So I feel like sometimes critics just get overly, and you know, and it could be a mandate from, you know, whoever is selling. Like, yeah, we need this, we need to, you know, and you're trying to add credibility for yourself and for this outlet and whatever, all that stuff. So this is the final movie, and this, I feel like this is a little hard to talk about, because like I don't want to. I feel like I can't go into specifics of this. I don't want to really talk about like, oh, then this happened, because that's going to kind of take away from the movie. I mean, you've seen all of these, because I think, is this the 9th? I'm trying to remember. Well, I have the number 9 in my head. How many Conjuring movies have there been? Is there only been 4? Is there 9 movies counting the Annabelle? Because there's 2 Annabelles, right? And then there's 2 nuns. Was there anything else? Because La Llorona, I don't think that was that a full, or is that like a separate thing? I don't know if there's listed anywhere. No, wait. I found a list. There's three Annabelle movies. I know I must have seen it. There's Annabelle Comes Home, and Annabelle Creation. Okay, so The Conjuring, Annabelle, that's 2. Conjuring 2, Annabelle Creation, The Nun, Annabelle Comes Home, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, The Nun 2, and then The Conjuring Last Rites. So yeah, so La Llorona, I guess that's not, I thought that was loosely connected, but I guess not. So we have all these movies. And the Conjuring movies deal with Ed and Lorraine Warren, where they investigate all this paranormal stuff and everything. And it's been kind of fun seeing them through all the different movies, and, you know, seeing different points in their lives and everything like that, and like all the stuff that they collected, and where you kind of get some callbacks, like, you know, the Annabelle doll is locked up in there and everything. So I guess the last movie was 2021. Was The Devil Made Me Do It, and I'm trying to remember where that ended, like where they're at, but. Now we're at a point where their daughter's 22, I believe, in this movie. And, you know, we get a flashback like before she was born and everything like that. And that's what I will say, and I don't know what is out there about this movie. What's kind of fitting for this is we see like before their daughter was born. So I think it was 1964. I don't want to look that up because it's whatever. It ruins the flow, right? So they go to investigate the case, and I won't say like what it is or any specific like that, but it's like while she's pregnant, and something happens during the case. I feel like this might be saying too much, and then she goes into labor, and so there's like, so whatever this is, and then this case kind of comes back, or an element of it kind of comes back. So it's kind of nice. This wasn't their first case or whatever, but it was their first case with their daughter, and then it comes back to like their final, quote unquote, final case. But they've done other stuff, or Lorraine's done other stuff, right? Maybe. I don't know where Amityville Horror fits in with her, because she was involved with that, right? That was her. I don't know. But this, where we're at now, so that the thing that happens here is connected to that first case in some way. That's all I'm going to say about that. Well, we're also at a point where they kind of decided they were going to retire and just do like the teaching stuff, and that's because Ed he had a heart attack and everything, so it's not safe for him to just all the demands and the craziness. But it's like this stuff starts happening, bad stuff starts happening to his family, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this family was like kind of stressful because they had 4 kids, they had 4 daughters. I think the youngest 2 might have been twins, and then someone's parents were there. So there's 4 adults and 4 kids in this house. It's like, holy crap, and a dog. And then then the bad stuff starts happening, and it's just like it's horrific and freaky. So you get a lot of that freaky stuff, which you would expect in these movies. But then there's also a little more, because then there's stuff like developing like the family stuff and stuff with their daughter, and her developing her life and stuff like that, because she's got a boyfriend, and so it almost, I think in some ways it kind of takes like a long time to establish everything. But I mean, Patrick Wilson is just great. He's funny and everything like that. And Vera Farmiga, she's good at her, what she does. So, but you see just like all this, because if they're like retired or whatever, it's like we're seeing the threat, the evil, whatever, develop and develop and develop while they're not even in the picture, basically. They're just doing their own stuff, and then obviously they have to get pulled into it. So then they end up somehow they end up going to the house, but it's like it takes so long to get there. So I think that might be a problem for some people. I mean, without reading all the reviews, I have a feeling that's what some people are not going to be happy about. That it takes that while to get there. But at the same time, the reason for that is so we get to see more of the Warrens, like, and everything's going on. Because if this is the last movie, you want to sort of get a closure on them and like see as much of where they're gonna go, even though we kind of know we know what happens after, because it's sort of history, because it's these are actual events or whatever. So you could look at when did Ed die in real life? When did Lorraine die? What is happening? So you can find that stuff out. But this is the last movie, so I feel like they're just trying to give us as much as they can, while adding in the other elements, if that makes any sense. So it was fine, but I feel like having more of the family stuff and like the stuff with the daughter and the boyfriend, that kind of maybe change the vibe a little bit, and this is the last movie. It's like that might not be the best time to do that. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's over 100. How many critics? 122, 125. So yeah, and I'm not gonna read the reviews. I don't know if it's like I feel like it's kind of, I'm kind of curious to see what people think, because it's not just about me, but I feel like it's kind of silly if you're not listening to this to hear me read other people's reviews or whatever. The budget is $55 million, and I think, let's see, how much did it make on opening? Box office. Okay. Wait, the film's premiere in the Philippines marked the second highest grossing opening day for any film in the country in 2025. Second highest, wow. It's the highest for a horror film, surpassing Final Destination Bloodlines. The film would gross $8.5 million in Thursday previews, setting a franchise record. That's good. Good way to end it. The film also surpassed The Nun's 5.4 Thursday box office. Ugh, I wasn't a fan of it. The Nun was fine. The Nun 2 was worse. Yeah, I didn't really care for it. Maybe because those were old timey stuff, right? So I didn't really like them so much. But yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say. I feel like they do a good job. I do wonder though, is this the final movie or is this just a final Conjuring movie? I mean, in some ways, it kind of doesn't make any sense. I mean, you could still tell other stories because I feel like there's like other artifacts in the room, but I guess you can't really tell like oh, here's a hairbrush. Like, what's the story with the hairbrush? It's not going to be it. It's not like telling another Annabelle story. Or I feel like that's like a bigger whatever thing. So, yeah, it was good. And it would be fun to go back and like rewatch all of them. Maybe someday I'll do that, but yeah. So I feel like I'm just kind of bummed that it's the last one because I don't want it to be over because the movies are kind of fun and interesting and freaky, but it is time because it's almost like these movies start to get a little predictable, and how things are going to end for the most part. So maybe it is time, to draw it. And with the actors getting older, we're getting chronologically towards the end of their career, so it just makes sense, and they're just like, okay, we're going to do it. So even though this movie was successful, had successful openings, I don't know if it'll make up that $55 million budget. Like how, like I don't know what I don't see weekend predictions, but yeah, we'll have to see how that does. So I think on that note, that is going to be it for this week. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He's a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I just recently did a couple off my mind, random topic episodes, which they're fun. I want to do more of those. I just need to get inspired, and I don't sit and think about it. And that's why, like last week's, it just kind of came to me, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do this instead. But there's also the Hobgoblin stuff. I'm determined to get through that. I feel like it's just been so long. Hopefully you are enjoying that. I hope you're enjoying that. But we're getting closer to that, so we'll wrap that up soon. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. And that's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, what's going to be next week? Oh, there's so much TV show. We got Peacemaker, Alien Earth, Twisted Metal, Dexter Resurrection. Maybe Wednesday. I don't know. I'm still on the fence with that. I don't know if people want to hear about it, and I don't know if it's just a different age group. Is this for the younger kids? I mean, are we watching it? Are adults watching it? I don't know. I want to watch it. It's just there's just so much to watch. So I will try to see if I can do, because that's just like so much to watch. So we'll see. The movie feature, I'm hoping it's going to be The Long Walk. So The Long Walk is a Richard Bachman story. And as you may probably know, Richard Bachman was the pseudonym, the alien, whatever you want to call it, for Stephen King. So it's one of the Bachman books. And I thought I listened to the audio before. I may have one of the Bachman books audio, but I looked in my Audible library and I couldn't find it. So I ended up downloading it. So I'm listening to it. Maybe I read it, or maybe I listened to it before, but I'm currently listening to it again. So I'm hoping my theater gets it, because they don't have it listed. Because I don't want to see Downton Abbey, only because I haven't seen I haven't seen any of the movies. I don't think I finished like the last season. And again, for old-timey stuff, I'm okay with it, but obviously since I haven't watched the movies, I'm not like dying to see it. So, I mean, I wish it success, but yeah, I don't know about that. There's also Spinal Tap 2. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't even know. How wide is that opening? So we'll see. And I know I have another class thing that I'm doing. I don't know if it's this week or the following week. I forget. But man, I hope I have enough time to do everything. I hope you are doing well. I hope you're doing better than I am. I hope you're hanging in there. I hope you're doing fun things. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.